It's good to see you. And I guess this is has it been a month yet since the Georgia Shorts Film Festival?
Gosh, I have no idea. First of all, like time goes so different during pandemic and I guess after pandemic, which we're not fully out yet, but yeah, time is very bizarre to me right now.
Right, I know. Yes, it's absolutely relative and all over the place. I have no idea what day it is ever.
Yeah, it's like that could have been last week. I mean, it wasn't, but like it could feel like that.
Right. No. Yeah, it was May 1st. That was the weekend of May 1st, right? The
Okay,
Georgia Shorts
that
Film
sounds
Festival.
right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
Wow.
right. Yeah, man. That was a few weeks ago, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy to be here and connecting further with you. And your film that got in was phenomenal. Thank you so much for sharing it because even though I came in at y'all's film block, I missed that because I was having my own emotional self-care of like going up and talking in front of a crowd, so I didn't want to get there too early to where I psych myself out of it. So,
I understand. Yeah. No, your presentation was great, which is part of the reason why I wanted to talk with you even further. So definitely.
Awesome.
I'm gonna do my intro real quick.
You got it.
How you doing, guys? This is another episode of the new Filmosophy. This is Trei Hill, and we have the pleasure of having with us today Miss Michelle Caruso. This is where I put in the post. It's great. It's going to be epic. It won't be nowhere near as quiet as it is right now. Cool. But yeah, she's an independent filmmaker as well. And as we were just discussing, you just heard us talking about the Georgia Shorts Film Festival where we met. And that was the weekend of May 1st. She had an awesome presentation where you got to talk about, the saying of fix it in post. No, my friend. We fix it in prep. We fix it before we even get there. And I loved your breakdown because that's what it is. When we're out there and we're making our films, we have to embed the process into everything that we do, and it just to set ourselves up for victory, right? So I was like, I see you here. We eye level, man. I got to tap into that, man. So blessings. I really appreciate you coming, and I really appreciate you picking this film. The film that we're going to break down today is A League of Their Own. It's with Gina Davis and Tom Hanks, and I hadn't watched it since I was a kid. And I would only watch it. I had to make sure I was by myself because it was like my guilty pleasure. I'd cry throughout the entire film.
There's no crying in baseball.
Right? There's no crying. I love that. That was perfect. Yes, man. It's like, man, Tom Hanks, he was just, what a beautiful performance, right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and with Tom Hanks and his history of performances too, I would say this was probably one of his darker roles.
Yeah, man, definitely. I mean, Jimmy Dugan, he was an alcoholic, and he, the best years of his life, you could tell, were behind him, and he was dealing with that, right? He was kind of coping with that. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, man, it was definitely, yeah, you're right. I didn't even think of it like that. It was one of his darker roles. But we're going to get into it. We're going to get into the movie in a bit, guys. So the first thing that I do typically is I try to just get the audience to get to know you a bit in your style of film, what you like to do. So let's see. Oh, before we do that, I need to give you this. Hold on. Because it's a tradition. You see that board behind you?
Oh, yes.
Yes. That is tradition here for us. You can erase Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Yes, that happened. Yes, it was Morphin time. It was definitely Morphin time. Yeah. So you can erase with this.
Okay.
And you can write with this.
All right.
And you'll put A League of Their Own where Mighty Morphin is, and where our good stunt actor friend Brandon Arnold's name is. You can put your own.
Okay, perfect.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Great. All right.
I'll be right back.
I wish you luck. Cool. So yeah, man. So how did you get to know Caroline and the Georgia Film Fest crew?
Well, am I too far away or am I okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, cool.
We have an awesome condenser mic and shotgun mic that does all and hears all.
Okay, awesome. Well, I was connected to Cinema Life through oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name. The founder of Roll Call.
Yes, I met him the first year I was on
on
Georgia Shorts, but yeah.
Yeah.
We're sorry. We're sorry, Georgia
I am
Shorts.
so sorry. Oh my gosh. But yeah, no, we were catching up the other day. He's also a producer in town, and we met through one of his events, Film Pitch ATL. I always kind of mix up the order. I think I have that right.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just kept in touch, and I'm really interested and appreciate what he's doing in Atlanta as far as, theater and film and just creating an art scene and doing at a hot spot right now in Atlanta with Pond City Market. Like, it just, helps our exposure, and that audience building is very important.
Right. Oh, that's cool, man. That's beautiful. Yeah, I love the film community, the burgeoning film community in the Atlanta area. It's so encouraging, We don't we don't ever have to feel like we're alone in this road, Oh wow, that was great. That was so fast. That was a Filmosophy record right there.
Sweet.
All right, now we can get to the nitty-gritty, all right?
All right.
So, now this is a question that there's no right or wrong. What?
Stephen Bueller. Sorry, I just had to say that. That is how I got connected to Cinema Life.
Stephen Bueller.
Yeah.
Shout out to my man. Thank you. You guys hold a beautiful event. Caroline, you guys do amazing things, man. That was my second year there, and yeah, it's great stuff. So, what is your filmosophy?
Like who I am as a filmmaker and like my voice is...
I like that. Yeah, I would say that and the type of movies you like to watch.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the type of movies I like to watch, I really like female empowerment, which is part of the reason why I chose A League of Their Own.
Mm-hmm.
I also played softball back in the day.
Nice. We just played a couple of summers ago. We played in a softball league, me and my wife. It was a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, my sister works for Habitat for Humanity, and they have a league as well, A League of Their Own.
Nice. Yeah, you're so
I'm
poetic.
like on fire today.
Yeah, you're a very poetic woman here. Michelle Allen Poe.
Oh my gosh. My middle name is Anne.
How about it? See? Again.
And then, yeah, as far as my style, I definitely gear towards drama, but I like to have situational humor in there, and I really love transformative stories. One of my bigger influences as a filmmaker is Quentin Tarantino, and like, I'm a very big fan, and I'm sure there are others out there as well. But I think where me and him are different a bit is... he likes like that gritty darkness, and it's like I like to stay in that for a bit, but like come out on this other side, and not so much as a revenge, but more of an empowering growth transformation.
I love that.
So I think, as much as I love his style, love his stories, his way of filmmaking, and also like the subjects that he chooses, I think is really fascinating, and of course his dialogue's phenomenal.
Of course.
And then another filmmaker that I really like is Rob Marshall. I also come from a bit of a music background. I played violin from 4th grade through high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Love the violin. That's my favorite instrument.
Oh, nice. Well, it's funny. I'm the youngest out of, I have 2 older sisters, and Angie, my oldest one, is the one that started the violin, and Maria played clarinet. And I don't know, I was always like being the youngest, following in their footsteps in certain ways. They also played softball. I play softball anyways.
Nice.
And I did violin. And then looking back of like my favorite out of the string instruments is cello. So I was like, I always love the sound of cello.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, man. It's something about the violin. It just cries to you, man. I love it. It's just like whenever I'm talking to my composer, or just when I'm just relaxing, doing work, I'm always playing the violin or playing some violin music, not playing the violin. Can't do that. But I love it. It's just I love that sound. I get chills just thinking about like hearing just a nice, beautiful violin solo. I love it. So that's cool.
Yeah, it is very challenging to play.
Yeah.
I think, and it taught me just such great lessons growing up I felt kind of pressured to do it because I was quote unquote, I did fine in school, but with the standards of my family, I could be doing better, And
Nice.
so, yeah, they got me into that to help out with my skills in math and history and etc. And I think it definitely taught me discipline, and also, in looking back on it, like I could appreciate and could get into the classicals, but I was also attracted to other music that I wasn't being taught, like film scores, for example. Like I remember the few times that we went to a music store, I picked up, the books of how to play the James Bond theme or whatever, and that's like what I loved and grouped with. So yeah, there just was like always a bit of a, I don't know if power struggle is the right word, but there was definitely emotions that went through my journey with playing violin. But what's nice as a filmmaker, as you said, like discussing with your composer, I feel like as a director, I'm able to speak the music language better than some other directors because I have that music background. So I'm really grateful that I've had that. Not everyone comes with that background.
Definitely, man. That's so cool to look at it that way. And I love when you were just talking about, character transformative films that you love so much, and I am too. I love, I'm definitely more, I like my Saturday morning cartoons and Spielberg's beautiful happy endings. I'm a sucker for that stuff. The corny rom-coms. I love all of that. But I remember my screenplay, my screenplay instructor. He would always tell us that that story is change. He would always say that story is change. We want to watch the character change, essentially. And it makes me think of him using Breaking Bad as an example, and how Walter White went from this hunky-dory middle school or high school teacher into Scarface, essentially, and they created one of the best shows ever, right? So just to keep that in mind, that story is change, So I love that you say that you love transformative films, because that that's real cinema, right? So that's what we want to see.
Yeah, and transformative for the positive as well is what I personally want to focus on in the works that I,
yeah, I guess Breaking Bad wasn't for the positive change, right? Yeah.
Well, it's interesting he tapped into parts of him that maybe were trying to, if his stakes weren't risen, literally life or death, like he thought he was dying.
Right.
It's interesting what arises in ourselves.
Right. Ain't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, when you're in those situations, and that sort of, that switch that you're looking for so much, that sort of, whether it's your magnum opus or whatever that thing is that clicks in you to create and to be your best self, it definitely clicked. I mean, I don't know if that was his best self. That's why I do enjoy a good anti-hero film, because it does ask us. It does, make us ask those sort of questions as far as the gray area in good and evil, and the system that you're in, and in the circumstances that you're in. But I mean, it's definitely, I think that in itself is what kind of leaves that sort of depressing taste in your mouth after watching that, right? Where you're just like, oh, he could have been, all of this, but now he had to have been this. No Breaking Bad spoilers here, guys. But, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. And yeah, returning to A League of Their Own, and it's so funny rewatching this. I have rewatched it, throughout the years, but of course was introduced to it in my childhood as well. And it's so interesting. This is a very, very female empowering movie, and a lot of, icons in this film as well.
Yeah, man.
And, it took place during a war, and the men were, off fighting the war, and then the women had to come out of the kitchens and...
You remember that? What's her name?
Yeah.
I forgot her
forgot.
name. I have her socks.
Nice.
The woman with the... Or it's for the people that listen to this, it's the woman that has the thing,
her bandana and like a bicep making a muscle.
Bicep curl, yeah. But here, we're gonna look it up now. But
yeah, I can't remember. And then it's interesting too when you look at female empowering movies, is I think this one was made in the 90s. There's always going to be oh, they could have done this better or that, but times have changed, and it's like in some ways this was a film very much ahead of its time. And what was interesting is, the women literally started a league of their own. I mean, it was a man's idea, but they were desperate to make money. Right. It started with money.
Yeah, exactly.
And so who's left that's not at the war? Women. So the scout goes out across the country and puts together a professional women's league of baseball. And the women were doing really phenomenal, but the tickets weren't quite there.
Right.
So this is a woman where I truly, really resonate with the struggle of we always have to do more.
Yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's unfortunately when it comes to bigotry, it's you can't slip, you can't mess up, and it's and even the opportunity in itself didn't even come from wasn't even rooted in a place of genuinity about women or women empowerment. It was just about the almighty dollar, right? But I like to think that that's the universe. That's even when we're at our worst, the universe still kind of has its way of unleashing justice, even if it's incrementally, right?
That's so fascinating. I love that viewpoint.
Yeah. Hopefully it's true, right?
Yeah.
But, yeah, man. So cool. We'll get more into the league in a bit. But so name a VHS that you either still own or the one that you can think that you put in last, that you watched last.
Ooh. It's funny. I think 2 moves ago is when I finally got rid of my VHSs. I had the DVD VHS combo for a while. I still have a DVD player. Some people don't even have that. And I still have a shelf full of DVDs. I'm not... And that's the thing. It's these are the movies that matter to me.
Right.
Some embarrassing ones are on there, and I don't care. So, going back to romance, oh my gosh, I have a lot of romantic movies. That some people are like, I can't believe you like that movie.
Nice. Those 90s cheesy. Yes. Yeah, man. Nice. That's great. It was a different time. I felt akin to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, where it was just a different time, and it's really nice that we have those, especially in our generation, just to be able to go back and for a couple of hours. It's just nice and innocent. It's boy meets girl. It's joyous. It's a happy ending. That's why we watch cinema, right? So.
Yeah, and I would say the 90s, I mean, sure, sometimes there wasn't dynamic characters, or sometimes there's this fantasy of princess is looking for her knight in shining armor, but I wouldn't say all of them are like that. I feel like a good chunk of them do have these interesting dynamic characters that do stand up. And, as society grows and we're, learning, something interesting that you said earlier of when there's opportunities for voices that haven't been heard or people that have never been at the table, then that's when we find new information.
Right.
So I don't know. I feel like I'm a lot kinder than some people of they did this wrong, blah blah blah, and I'm just well, it's keeping in context the time, and also and hopefully we have grown, and if not, then that's something to look at. Yeah. And also as a filmmaker, that's something I definitely like to keep my eyes about in society of the conversations I hear, what's happening in the political landscape, and now very much the technology landscape. I forget, I'm super into documentaries and podcasts. I forget where this information came from, but they were saying at the rate that technology is growing or progressing, that's never happened to humanity. We've always grown with our environment, but this is an instance where the technology is so ahead of how we know how to adapt with it, I guess, which is why we're having these issues of privacy and how that can turn into manipulation.
Right.
It's a really interesting, sometimes scary, but exciting time. I'm still really excited and I'm really grateful to be in at the time that I am, where I got to have life without some technologies, but also see the progress of it.
Right. We're the generation that went from analog to digital, right? Essentially.
Right.
So we got to see that sort of maturation, right? So where we're at now, right?
Yeah. And as a filmmaker, that's something I like to look at is like what happened in the past, where are we now, and where could we be going? And if I feel like there's any warning signs, that's also, and I feel like you may resonate with this as a sci-fi filmmaker, like how can we talk about that?
Right. Yeah, exactly. In a fantastical way, right? Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I think that this, I've had this conversation a couple of times when we're talking about, today with cancel culture. And I think it's great that, anybody that is in any power, that they are being forced to be conscious, that they're afraid of doing something that is offensive to thinking about minorities. I think that's a great thing. I think it's a very good thing. But there's always a double-edged blade to everything. I just think that, any time in history you can go back and let's hope that we're better today, right? So anywhere you can go, it's like I remember there's a comedian that was like black people can't mess with time machines. Like,
oh my gosh.
It's like they go back past the 60s in America and they're like done.
Oh yeah.
Like, nope, I'm good. But no, it's like anytime, like all the things that minorities, women, blacks, the LGBTQIA, anything that they've had to deal with beforehand, it's better now. So of course there's just a lot of content from back then. There's a lot of ways of thinking back then that are they're just outdated. So I don't know. I'm glad I'm not the authority, but where is that line drawn into, whether or not it's allowed to be exhibited still or not, or what that looks like now, right? But yeah, I feel you on that, man. There's so many old school things that we love and are near and dear to our heart, and they're one dimensional, or they're not quite developed yet, but they're there, right? For better or worse. So,
well, and I think that's the mindset to have of like as new information comes, like don't damn it or judge it, but also just like listen and possibly adjust.
Right. Yeah, yeah, man. Needed. Yeah, and acknowledge it, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking, oh man, looking through just to play a cartoon, in the background, and I started playing. I think it was Peter Pan or something like that, and it was just saying on Disney Plus, and then at the beginning it said that there's offensive. And I was just like, in the back of my head, I was like, I don't know what it was. And then it started, and it is like, what made the red? I'm like, oh my Lord, goodness gracious! It's like, like the red man. What made the red man red? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is bad. Oh, but didn't even know back then, right? But such is life.
Yes.
Cool. All right. So, what's the last movie you've seen in the theaters? They're starting to crack open, but. Have you been lately?
Oh my goodness. I have not been lately. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it'll be kind of hard for me to remember the last movie I saw in theater. But
what? I forgot to tell you to change the number on here while you're thinking of it.
Sure.
I'm listening still.
Okay. And actually, I'm going to circle back because with the VHS, I wanted to get back to that too. The last VHS I owned and probably watched was, and going back to 90s rom-coms, was... oh my gosh, it's got Drew Barrymore in it. It's like a version of a Cinderella story.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Ever After?
Ever After.
Yes, that was it. Yeah. That was a good one. That was sweet. That was a really endearing one. That's cool. I like that.
Yeah, I tend to watch that one once a year because, like, also the way she speaks, like, she's also comes from, a position of being not in a point of privilege. And then she gets to go undercover as a point of privilege.
Right, I got you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And with that, she comes with this powerful voice that's also not heard in this society. And she causes some really interesting shifts. But then also a lot of judgment. And then she, like loses the wing and, has her own kind of fall. But then fortunately, like there's people there to help support her and bring her back up. So yeah,
that's beautiful.
I love that movie.
I love that, man. And she found the balance, that perspective is always seems to be the most powerful one, right? Because it's not one-sided. It's not it doesn't have the blinders on, so to speak, right? So yeah, that seems to be the perspective that ends up getting taken to another level and then scrutinized. It's kind of like the first person out on the battlefield that runs out and they get shot up for the rest of the people to come,
Yeah. And then she's like, come on. And they're like, I don't know.
I don't know about this.
But then some people do follow.
Right. Exactly, man. And then we can move on to the next era, right?
Absolutely.
Cool stuff. So the last time you've been to the theater?
The last time I've been to the theater, man, it's literally been years. Because it's so funny, even though as a filmmaker, and there was an interesting article about this of like a lot of people have just not been going to theaters because we have like these great kind of home theaters now.
Yeah, ain't that something?
Yeah, and so much content. I'm super blanking I feel like it was probably a superhero one.
Was it like Endgame or...
I did not see. I was really late to the Endgame game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't until like it came out on Disney Plus, and then a few months into that, I was like, okay, I'm finally gonna watch this movie, and it was great. I enjoyed it.
Cool. Yeah. How many of the Avenger films, the MCU films, had you seen? Did you see them all?
Not all of them. I don't got them all.
You're good. Yeah, no, there's no judgment in Filmosophy. Everybody feels like you haven't seen this. Well, I was watching something else. That's the whole point. It's not homework, right?
Right. And we all have like our favorite superheroes, and I've seen. I love the Captain America ones. Specifically, the second one I thought was great.
Yeah. Was that Winter Soldier? Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And Guardians of the Galaxy. I've seen all the Iron Mans. I like Thor, not in his separate films, but the ensemble films more so.
That's what everyone says. It wasn't until Ragnarok that Waititi, that when he took over, the Thors before that, they were pretty rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Say the least.
Yeah, and then I saw, what's the female one that recently came out? Miss Universe?
Was it
Miss Marvel?
Captain Marvel?
Captain Marvel.
Yeah. She was one of the last films of that year in 2019, right? Yeah, I think that was 2019. Yeah, that was one of the last MCU films. Yeah, I think that mine was Star Wars or Hustlers. It was like right around in that kind of time. It was one of those two. So yeah, if that helps at all. But you think that yours was maybe like Captain Marvel or something?
Well, now I actually think it's coming forward in my brain now. It was the one that was based on Judy Garland.
Oh wow, Judy! Yeah,
Judy.
I still have to see that. I love Judy Garland so much. My favorite musical is In the Good Old Summertime. It's this. It's super throwback, but yeah, starring Judy Garland, and I love her. She was such a classical star, in her time.
Yeah, and working in the business and hearing what like a young female actress went through, and then like how that translates into her adulthood was really heart-wrenching, but for lack of a better word, also fascinating of, anytime you get to hear someone's story, and she's very much, I would say, an anti-hero as well. Like, she's super flawed, but I really like when a storyteller, an actor, all the moving parts, are really great about depicting why they are the way they are. Right, and you super walk away from that movie understanding her journey.
Right. Yeah, man. That's cool. I haven't checked it out yet, but I'm looking forward to seeing it because I love Judy. That's really cool. Yeah. All right. Cool. Last theater appearance. All right. And then the last one is, of course, the hardest one. What's your favorite movie?
It always changes, but I would say, okay, my overall go-to has been Good Will Hunting.
Nice. Yeah, what you told me too. Yeah, man. Yeah, you can't go wrong. Robin Williams, the Boston Boys, Ben Affleck, and Matt Damon. It was well-made movie.
Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff that, hits home for me, both in the story and how it also became. Like, this was, a project that the actors were working on in college, and it just was their baby, and they said, we're going to star in this. And I feel like that I'm going to have a similar, I just feel on my soul that I'm going to have a similar journey of like, one of my friends asked, like, oh, if someone wants to direct your first feature, will you let them? Like, no, I am going to direct especially the one that, I have on the burner that I've been pitching, trying to get made and greenlit and I think that's really powerful and important to know as a filmmaker of like when to say yes and when to say no. Of like, if I say yes, someone else can make this film, that's very much my voice. And also that's what I wanted to do for my first feature director debut is have it as much as me and my voice and my values and, et cetera, as a filmmaker is like, so if I had let someone else do that, for one thing, it's not going to turn out the way I see it and the way it could.
Right.
And also that is my career.
Right.
Essentially,
yeah.
So thanks, but no thanks. So, if I get that offer, and I'm sure it'll be really hard to say no, but yeah.
Yeah, man. No, that's beautiful. No, I really appreciate their story, and you just talking, it also reminded me of Sylvester Stallone. When he was pitching around Rocky, where his was about, I'm going to star in it no matter what, not direct it no matter what, but it's still that goal that you have to have as an indie filmmaker, where you're like, I believe in this project, and I'm a firm believer, and I think that we see that twinkle, that thing behind your eyes, where it's like, this person's going to get it done. Like, I want to be on that person's team, right? So I'm glad that you have that attitude. I already knew you had it. So after that awesome presentation, I knew you already had it.
Thank you. Yeah, and so just a little bit, and I felt so bad, like physically, the day that we got to talking,
really?
At that table. Yeah. But yeah, I was so thankful that, you reached out and we're, doing this, and yeah, like our journey is just beginning.
Yeah, man.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, man. No, I mean, it's, we all we got, so when you see, another ambitious filmmaker, it's important for us to see that commonality between us, because that's, sometimes that's all we have,
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it is what it is. Well, that's great. All right, so now we can go ahead and get into A League of Their Own.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So I want to say the director's name real quick, because it was a female that I was very surprised that I believe this was her first feature. Music by
Hans Zimmer, who's amazing.
Right? Goodness gracious. They had the heavy hitters for this one, right?
They really did.
Mm-hmm. So many. So Penny Marshall. Directed by Penny Marshall. She was an actress, director, and producer. R.I.P. to the goddess. She did an awesome job. And it definitely... To me, my buddy last night, we were watching the Yankees White Sox, and the Yankees won. And I grew up a Yankees fan, but then DC got a team, the Nationals, some years back, and I became a homer. Any home team in the DC area, I love. So I jostle in between the Yankees and the Nationals now, depending on who has the best record. But we were just hanging out last night watching the game, and he was like, man, what's your favorite baseball film? And of course I wanted to say Field of Dreams, and I did say it just because it's just such a beautiful movie. It's just so
that's a tearjerker.
Yes, visually, and then yes, it's just a beautiful film, and after being refreshed by A League of Their Own, for me, I have to put it right up there with Field of Dreams, just because of what I told you when we first started this. Like, I remember I was so grateful that you picked the film, because it was just all those feelings of nostalgia, like just me watching this movie by myself, at like 12 years old. We walk around in school and we're trying to be cool, and I'm playing football and all of that. But then I went home, and I'm like, is anybody watching? So I watched this, and I'm like, Derek, you can cry sometimes if you want.
Oh my God.
Man, come on, kid, you can do it. And
yeah.
I just love how endearing it is. I think we'll get into the characters and their dilemmas. I really appreciated there's this story hadn't been told before at all. There's no different versions of it,
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Dottie at the beginning, she's older. Our lead character. This is the older version of Gina Davis's character. So she's packing with her daughter so she can go to this Hall of Fame reveal that will be for the women's league, which I think they called the girls' league, which was really weird. Like, it's just anyway. So
the dollies is how they were referred to at one time. I was like,
really? Oh
yeah.
my gosh, yeah, man. There's so many. It's just that time, man. That era. Goodness gracious, so many things that you're like, oh my god, like how they treated them, just how they would. It was just like an afterthought to treat women a certain way, at that time, right?
Absolutely.
But so Dottie, she's insecure about how special her time in the major league was to her, and I really appreciate her arc and her finding that out because we find out later on, of course, what happens between her and her sister winning the game and how she wanted it more than Dottie. And I was really intrigued by both of their arcs, but the whole thing kind of starts off with Dottie questioning how much this meant to her, even though we saw and we see how she was the best. She was the best out of all of them, but she was more dealing with this sort of meta thing of like, am I going to be this family woman or am I going to be this professional woman baseball player? And it's kind of like, it's almost the same question that we're asking as a society at the time, right? Whereas, do women belong in the kitchen, to stay there, or should they go out and do these jobs because the men are going to come back home? And now it's like that
It's the time.
Right, and that toothpaste can't be put back into, or will it be put back into, the tube, so to speak, right? And,
okay, yeah.
And she has to deal with that personally. So I kind of like that sort of aspect of it,
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's one of those things, especially as a female wanting a family, of like that takes time on your body to do that.
Yeah, man. How about it? Yeah. My wife reminds me all the time. Shout out to you, honey.
Yeah. So yeah, I totally feel like that's a really common thing with like females and our professional goals, whether like, especially then, like she had like this kind of one window, and I think she was like afraid to want it too much.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can see that, and I can really see myself in her arc in a lot of ways because I've kind of been dealing with this the past year since we've had my son, because like all of my life, it's all about the grind, it's all about, you endure and you make those decisions that you may not get the instant gratification, because there's a longer road ahead. There's something that you're focused on. And now it's this crazy feeling of, it's not about, oh, do I go work or do I play or relax, or it's not about that anymore. It's like I really genuinely enjoy being home with him now, and it's like now it's like hanging out. Nothing had ever rivaled working. Nothing had ever rivaled that passion to make movies, and so to have my son and just know for a fact, like, who am I? Am I a father? Am I like this father that spends time all day with your son, or are you the filmmaker that sacrifices everything? And I felt her struggle so much, I kind of could see that mirrored in my own life. So yeah,
Yeah, and I feel like, sometimes we feel like it's two roads.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I would say few have been able to make it one.
Right.
And that's where it comes into like that balance and like the self-check-in and as you were saying too, of, there's the grind, but also like even just in singlehood of finding that rest and balance of like, I'm really working on like this self-talk of like, if I need a rest, I need a rest.
Right.
Because I'm getting better about recognizing, burnout before versus like as it was happening.
Right. Good
Like,
Lord, yes.
how to
Yeah.
anticipate that a little better.
Right. Yeah, man. Yeah, I agree 100%. You know, it's something that we constantly have to balance, and I also try to tell myself everything is in phases. We tend to think that it's one way or the other always, and once you go that way, that's it. And I think that that's kind of the at least how I've been juggling it, where it's just I can zero in here, and then I can zero in there, and then I can zero in here. You just gotta
Definitely seasons of life.
right.
Yeah.
I love that exactly.
Gosh, something else you said.
I'm sure it'll come back up.
Yeah.
So let's see. So she gets to the Hall of Fame, and the rest are playing the exhibition game. And then that's when Dottie starts having the flashbacks. And as we said, this is set during World War II when all the men were out fighting. And then Chicago, I don't know if it was the White Sox or the Cubs, but the owner, Harvey, and I guess Lowenstein, I don't know what his position was, but they had the idea to go ahead, and they needed to keep baseball going. So that's what made them start going out to recruit women to create the Women's League. So they need to figure out how to keep baseball alive. Dottie helps Kit inside of a game that they're having back at home. Were they in Oregon?
That sounds right.
I believe that's where they were. They were in Oregon, and then Kit, this was the foreshadowing that Kit, she has to lay off of the high pitches, right? And then she strikes out. Dottie comes up. She hits the ball that ends up winning them the game. And there's a recruiter there. And then the recruiter comes to them while they're tugging at the cow teats.
Back on their farm.
Back at the farm, the country girls. And I love them juxtaposed to Madonna and Rosie later, the country girls versus the city girls, But yeah.
And they both got grit.
Right, exactly. Only to find out that they both have grit, just in different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember coming from Maryland down to UAB, the University of Alabama, Birmingham, to play football. And it was just the natural, that natural South versus North sort of edge that was there, where, man, we from Maryland, you know what I'm saying? Like, what, And then they're like, man, y'all better calm down. And then there was this huge brawl in the locker room, and by brawl, I mean completely one-sided, because we were the only two. There's only two of us from Maryland. They were like, say the South is wrong. It was like, we don't want to say it. We ain't gonna say it. It was crazy, man. But we both have grit. We both have our things, right? But yeah, and then the recruiter only wanted Dottie. And what's crazy is, Dottie was more talented, but they also only wanted her because she was prettier.
Yeah.
And that's when you're talking about, again, where the standards are different for the minority, for the women, because they are women. And it's the patriarch is alive and strong, and they will not accept a woman who we even see later, the father that raised, was her name Marla. Mm-hmm. They went to go pick up Marla, and Marla's knocking the ball out of the building, and they're not going to take her because she's not pretty enough unless Dottie would. And then Dottie stood up, and that's what you said when you're talking about Drew Barrymore's character, where it's like somebody has to stand up and be like, "Hey, man." Then I'm not going. Then how about that, right? And she actually got two of the best players in their league into their league because she wouldn't and she left. So essentially, she saved their butts without them even realizing it in a way, right? And is that nuts?
On something too, I want to touch on, like when the recruiters at the game, meeting the two sisters, Kit strikes out and then Dottie knocks it out of the park. One of the guys says, "Oh, so nice of your sister to bail you out." Right. And that sister dynamic is like so tense.
Yes,
and
man.
Not that me and my sisters have had that exact dynamic, but I totally understand that sisterhood dynamic of feeling like you're in someone's shadow, or you're not. As the youngest one, I felt like I often didn't have a voice or be seen, like, because also that northern and southern mentality. Both my parents' side of the family are from Massachusetts.
Okay.
So Italian, everyone's like loud and rambunctious, and like I just was like literally couldn't. There's so many loud voices in the room, so it's like, how do you be heard in that type of environment?
Wow. Where did they raise you?
Well, I was born in Missouri. We moved to Massachusetts for a while. My memory does not exist at that point. And then in New York, we lived there for 8 years in the burbs. And then we came down to Greenville, South Carolina, which is where my parents still are. And that was when I was going into middle school.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So,
yeah, I've got both northern and southern culture, but I definitely felt like out of a super fish out of water of I also grew up with a bit of a speech impediment.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, which I'm like so thankful that my parents put me into, classes to overcome that. And part of that I'm sure may have been like the northern accents, and like I may have just had a northern accent, but I think my grandmother specifically was like, no, you got to get her into speech therapy.
Well, you kicked that thing's butt. I met you at a presentation.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it is, like I said, like that's what I'm saying. Like the self-care, like part of me, like still like I've had to shed a lot of things.
Yeah, man. No, that's beautiful. Transformation.
Yes.
I love that, man. All right, so now let's see. So Dottie gets the winning hit. And again, Kit's talking about she's the other daughter. You know how like when their dad introduces them, they're like, "Oh, hey, this is Dottie," and then they're like, "Oh, there's Kit."
Poor Kit.
Yeah, man. I sympathize for you're empathize for her so much. Just again, just for feeling invisible, and they depicted that so well. And I love and I think that's what's so awesome about the ending, and what makes this so different from any other baseball movie too, or really any other sports movie when we get to the ending, because it's not about the 3 seconds left on the clock. Like we all know, every sports movie, we all know what's going to happen. There's 3 seconds left on the clock. They're going to win, right? They're going to get like the game-winning thing, right? But that's what I love about this ending, which we'll get into. Mm-hmm. Well, let's see. So the baseball recruiter grabs them for $75 a week. The big bucks.
Yeah, I wonder what the men were paid.
Right? Yeah, I know, right? Oh man, but I mean, with inflation, that is pretty rough, right?
Yeah.
So I love how Kit, she has her own journey, but she's so powerful in Dottie's journey. And when she says, "Don't you want to say you did something?" It's like because she feels so invisible, she needs to believe that there's more out there than their small country town, right? Because in this small country town, Dottie has won everything, and so she has to believe that there's something more for her, And I love just how that writing is just it has so many layers on it because it's just perfect. Of course, the very thing that makes her insecure is the thing that Dottie is missing, as far as that burning feeling to be great, right? To go to do more, because Dottie's like, hey man, I got a husband, I'm good, I'm winning all the time, everybody calls me pretty and smart and awesome, I'm good, Yeah. So but it took Kit's sort of grit to really make Dottie experience that thing that she'll never forget, right? That she ends up going into the Hall of Fame for, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. They both have what the other is lacking.
Right.
And yeah, for Dottie, of don't you want to do something with your life? I think she was, but like I think the younger sister helped show her that fire, and like even though she didn't have as much of the talent, maybe I don't know. I think she had her own emotional journey and hump that she had to get over, because since Dottie was doing so well, and the thing with Dottie that's interesting, like she was a big fish in the small town, and then she was pretty quickly a big fish in the bigger town too.
Right, yeah, man, exactly.
So it's like, as a sister that is like, she got her there, but it's like she earned her spot, and that's what is frustrating when you're dealing with like your own kind of self-turmoil of self-worth and confidence and comparison of like she has and did have the goods, but she just wasn't as able to be consistent with it. Or, you know, and what's interesting, getting with the ending of like the high, going back to the high ones.
Sure,
I don't know. I don't know where I'm trying to land on this.
No, I mean, with Kit, it's like, I think that she did have the goods, and I don't know if she was as great as Dottie was, but the thing is that you guys, to me, is like you guys came from the same place, and you guys sharpened each other. But you know, when you never get the affirmation, when you never get told, like, you know, it's, you know, when you're in the middle of pre-production and it's like, you know, nobody's there to tell you that this is a great idea, right? You know, like, so you're kind of insecure. You're like, is it, you know? And I feel like in a way that's kind of how Kit lived her whole life. It's like, yeah, she was great, but how can that greatness get nurtured if not only is she a woman in this day and age, but also she's constantly being told that she's second to Dottie. So it doesn't matter how great Dottie is. It doesn't matter how great she is. You know, she, like, all he did was touch her arm, right? And he was like, hold up. Like, you kind of, you know, you might work, right? You know, but that just shows that she had the glow too, right? She just needed to realize it on her own, and clearly she did, you know, and that's why the movie that was the perfect way to button the movie up, because it was her arc. It was her passion that got them there. And then, you know, Dottie left her team for better or worse. She also got her sister traded, you know, because of her own journey that she was kind of, and insecurities that she was dealing with. But it was Kit, man. It was Kit's passion that needed to get rewarded. That you know, that was worth it more than anything, because it would have just been another notch on Dottie's belt, and then she would have just retired.
Yeah.
You know, so the way it happened like that, you know, it was great, you know.
Well, and I think I think the universe came in and like they needed their separation. They needed to have their own paths in that last game, because Dottie, and I like that neither one of them held back. Of like, I feel like, as you know, the older sister, she's like, you know, I'm just living my life. Like, I'm not actually, you know, taking anything away from you.
Right.
And I think that was, like, the start of, like, you know, oh, you're just so perfect, you know, like, and it's like, but that doesn't take away from who Kit is. But she always felt like it was. So, yeah. And I liked that it just got like so competitive, for lack of a better word, of like neither one was holding back, but they were all like navigating their own things they had to navigate.
Right, exactly. And it kind of, when you were just talking, it made me think about another famous sister duo in Avengers with Nebula and Gamora, because, you know, because Thanos would make them fight growing up. And Gamora would win every time, and then Nebula, she would have to replace whatever limb that Gamora took off of her, you know. And so to the point where when they're adults, Nebula, I think the only thing that's not robotic about her is her mind or her heart or something like that. But and Nebula always said that, you know, I was, you know, I had to beat you. Like, that was it. I just, you know, you would never let me win, you know. But then Gamora turns around and says I mean, we're sisters. We're cool, man. Like, I didn't hate you. I mean, you know, I was trying to live. Like, it was like, it was either you or me, you know, and like we were just in this situation, you know. So it very, you know, it wasn't as abusive as a situation in Avengers with them two, but in A League of Their Own, there's definitely that whole essence of this big sister that's not necessarily have, like, you know, a vendetta or is doing anything with any insidious intent. It's just, man, I'm living my life, man, and it just so happens that it's creating this shadow over your life.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, that's a tough place to be in.
Right? Yeah, man. Yeah, the shadow is real, right?
Yeah.
So once they go through the tryouts and they pick all the girls, they show them the short skirts that they have to wear for sex appeal, right? And in that moment, it's really easy to vilify the owners. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, Harvey and Lowenstein, they're so low. But I wonder, do you think that society, maybe they were representing, the owners of that league were representing society more than them just using sex appeal all on their own. Maybe society in general expected women to be out there in their skirts to play. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not sure, because their uniforms from their hometowns, they got like a pantsuit.
Oh, see? Okay. That's a good point. Good point. Okay.
I think that just was playing into, okay, if we're going to have women, because like they truly, as the owners and the fans, they truly didn't know what the talent was because they've never had their stage before.
Right.
So it's like, okay, what more can we do to ensure the success? So I think that, like you said, like they were also vetting the woman's beauty.
Right.
And also like the commercial spots they were doing of like when, I don't know, I'm not getting the names right, but when Betty is not like hitting home runs, she's home cooking or something, just playing into the homekeeper, like by trying to bridge and combine those two worlds. And I really like that phrase. I'm sorry, jumping ahead a little bit of
you're fine.
Like when the men come home, are the men gonna go back to the kitchen? Because a woman, like we all of a sudden empowered them. It's like getting the silver spoon and then you take it away.
Right. But that was so appalling, right? He was like, what do you mean? The men are gonna go to the kitchen? It's like that could not happen, right? It's just like, yeah, man. It's just, that was the time, man. And just, it's really interesting how I think that everybody understands the world, in the time that they're in and the way that it is. But I think that pop culture has a way of kind of representing sometimes what really is. But that's why I asked you, like, was it us, or, maybe not the way things really are, but just kind of representing the times, kind of the general zeitgeist of the times. But sometimes, the majority rule can poke its way into pop culture, and it's not necessarily real. And that's what made me ask, what is that us as a society saying women need to be in skirts to play baseball, or was that just these capitalistic owners trying to benefit from them? I guess there's a little gray area in it, right?
I think so. I think because they were doing something that was so earth-breaking, like, oh, let's be gentler about how we present these women in a space that we've seen them before in skirts and dresses. But then also in playing softball, like when you slide, like not having protection there, and you see the one woman with like the huge well and bruises. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, man. Yes. I mean, that you talk about, when they say like man up, like that, like to have to do that, to like how many guys in the major leagues could have honestly have played with no protection like that?
Right.
Like, how many would have, right? Like, I don't know. Like, that's nuts. Cause they wanted it so bad. Those women were coming from places of very, no power, very impoverished locations. And I mean, it didn't even matter if you were from a place of privilege, even, the model, even, the swimsuit model, Miss Georgia, where it seemed like she was coming from, a bit of an upper class, but she's fighting too because she wants to be more than just a pretty face, right? So I think that it's that drive that kind of, in all of us humans, that kind of creates the best performances out of us,
Yeah, I think anytime that you're trying to go after a passion and one that's hard to achieve, and like with this, where it's like a very unique window of opportunity, you do what it takes, and it's like you can hate the players, but that's the game at times.
Right.
So it's like, if you want to be in the game, because there's a line in there of like, if you don't want to wear this, we'll get one of those girls in the butt. Like, there's always someone to replace you.
Exactly. And that kind of reminds me of set life too, because I spend, I come from, the PA nation, in the AD department, and sometimes I get told how much I'm getting paid, and it's real. I'm like, I have a master's. And then it's like, but then they're like, yeah, but I can call somebody else and they'll do this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That expendable nature is not healthy for this industry. And going back to rate of like, there's such a range of rates in this industry. It's just, it's maybe disgusting is too strong of a word, but a bit, honestly.
Yeah, man.
And just the whole like culture of paying your dues. I feel like there's a bit of a, not saying everyone's like this, but of a bit of a hazing
definitely
that people go through
because they went through it. They got
and
to
then
the
they
top.
pass it on.
Right.
Like, oh.
Yeah. And I don't know, Meg. There's so much of me, I come from playing football, and I really appreciate that background because anybody that works with me knows I'm willing to go to round 30. Like, let's go. It's like, we hurt, we tired, or let's go. I'm here, but I have to check myself because you don't have to. And you also shouldn't. In a lot of situations, you don't have to go through these. Very, these things, these fires that forge this spirit and this grit that kind of get you to those places that you want to be. And I don't know. It's like, to me, I'm always trying to ask myself as I'm navigating. I just tell myself to focus on the process, I mean, and it may be too simple, but I'm just always telling myself, if I start thinking too result based, then it does get frustrating because I'm like, I know what I've done and I know what my resume is, and I feel absolutely, and I know people that don't have anywhere near the resume to get the opportunities, but this is the world we're in, man, and the next person's success does not negate your own necessarily. So I'm just, you want to keep your eyes open and you want to be aware and I respect so much those people that have those standards and they're like, this is me, this is what I got, I am not settling for less. You have, and just balancing that. I'm constantly asking myself, like, I can endure, but should I? Kind of thing.
Yeah, and going back to the, PA or, working on studio produced projects, of like the
my son tends to make cameo appearances in our episodes quite often, so don't worry about that.
I'm like, oh, there's a baby
here. They're back from the park. They're back.
Of like the emotional journey that I've just been really trying to find peace with and embracing the process and where I'm at is I'm just not being seen in the way I want to be seen and not living to my full potential.
Right.
But also being patient of, and also like really recognizing the opportunities that are around me.
Right.
That's kind of like, I'm coming out of that storm a bit. Like I was in that storm. And with COVID of just, I think that's been an interesting assessment time. And where is our energy going?
Right.
And how are we balancing or are we not balanced?
Right.
So
don't feel bad. I'm still in the storm. I don't know what the hell. I just graduated, and it's cool. We go on the festivals and we go to the commencements and I feel great. I'm like, I feel recognized. I'm like, people see it. It's great. But at the end of the day, when I'm working on, my first feature script, or when I'm pitching ideas or when I'm like, what is that tangible thing? Like, I'm known as a production assistant, and that's what gets me on sets. And I get to meet people and I've gotten numbers and had meetings and have conversations with so many amazing people above the line and first teamers giving me great advice. But at the end of the day, it's, what can you do for me? Or what have you done? Because that's when I'm gonna hire you for. That's what I'm gonna put my reputation out for.
Right.
I'll put my reputation out for you as a walkie PA because you have perfect walkie inventory, right? You know.
Yeah.
But this trailer that you just showed me, it's not like I'm gonna, go help you make a feature from that now, right? So it's like, yeah. So what does that look like, right? What does that lift off, to where I'm not known as this. I'm not known as what I've done. I'm known for what I want to be, right? And so, what does that look like, right? But in the meantime, I'll do podcasts with my friends.
Yeah. That's me. I love that shared journey.
Right?
Yeah. It has its ups and down days for sure. Sometimes it's like, wow, I'm on the set with phenomenal veterans in the industry, but also and also seeing opportunities for change, because here's a really wise quote that I heard of when your sphere of influence will change when, essentially you're ready for it. Of my sphere of influence is only this big, but I'm seeing, ways that as my sphere of influence grows, and I can have more impacts.
Right.
And those are the days I'm looking forward to. But at the time, it's like, okay, I'm still listening, learning, and so.
Yeah, man. Always, just humbly learning, right? It doesn't matter where you're at, right? I'm always trying to have that mentality. And when you were just speaking, it made me think of something that I always try to keep in mind is just observe. It's not always about when you are judging as far as where you're at in your career. It's not always about what you're saying yes to. It's about what you're saying no to. So once upon a time, I can remember when me and my wife were dating, and I was like, man, I hope this show calls me again, for an additional PA day, right? Versus now, where I'm fat and spoiled, and I'm saying no to, oh no, I need to be paid the right. No, how many days is this shoot? No, I got, but those are the things that I think that are good benchmarks, good checkpoints to let you know that at least you're when you're talking about giving yourself that respect, that you deserve and where you're at in your road. I'm just, when you're like, am I doing better? Am I selling myself short? But I think that kind of assures me sometimes where I'm like, am I moving in this industry? And when I see what I say no to, it's like once upon a time, I'm like, when will somebody pay me to direct something? But then, after doing a couple of shorts, I've gotten, paid to do a commercial here and there. I've gotten paid to do a short, but it's, and then also I've said no to certain situations too, that I was just like, how much money do y'all have? How many pages is the script? I'm good. It's like, but it's again, I love filmmaking. I've been doing it for 10 years now, so it's not as much about me asking about what do I want to do anymore. It's and now that I know what filmmaking is, and I know what those days look like, I mean, man, we're masochists, man. We're psychos, man. We're trying to do the impossible. We're trying to do the impossible, but I love it, man. I love it. I love my little band of filmmakers. I love what we do, man. For better or worse,
Absolutely. Wow, I don't really have anything to add to that. That was great.
All right. A League of Their Own fans. We're going back now. So they had to go to charm and beauty school. Good Lord.
Oh my gosh.
And no smoking or drinking or sex. Could you picture?
No men.
Could you picture? Of course, I aligned that with no sex.
Oh yeah.
That's how I computed it in my head. What else are men good for? No, but could you picture telling the major leagues that? Could you picture telling Babe Ruth no drinks, no cigarettes, and no sex or no women? Could you picture?
Look at Jimmy Dugan.
Right. He's
drunk, sloppy, and kisses what's her face?
Yes, man. That their teacher or their whoever what was she?
I don't know. I was wondering that because
their babysitter.
They never really introduced her. Also, and she was there.
Right.
And I want to say she's probably was a representative from the beauty school to make sure that the women are that in check, but
like doing the things, being women, being a lady. They probably it really felt like they cut a scene out from her, establishing her, which wasn't necessarily necessary, but she was felt. She was felt nonetheless, literally by Jimmy's lips.
Right. Oh my gosh. Mr. Dugan.
Right. And then Madonna, man. Madonna's man, she's so gorgeous. They all were. All the women were beautiful, but I love Madonna. You know, she was all of our 90s crush, right? She got her sick. She made her a drink so they can go out or whatever. So her and Rosie O'Donnell, again, they play the women from New York. And Rosie O'Donnell was the bouncer, and Madonna's character was one of the exotic dancers. All the Way May. That was her name. Yes. and I really love how, you know, they could not delve into all these women's lives, which probably could all have been movies on their own.
Absolutely.
And I love how with this ensemble cast, they were able to sprinkle in just enough for you to feel what that journey looked like, right? You know, like later on when they threatened to get rid of the league, and she was like, I'm not going back. You tell them they're not canceling me. You know, it's like to me, it's like I saw a flashback of her like being annoyed at the club, being dancing and stuff, and like she's like, is there more in my life? Is this all just me? And here is her opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And then with Rosie, she was talking about how she's with a husband who doesn't treat her right, but hey, you know, nobody else ever paid her that type of attention, right? So, you know, they're like, is he good? Is it a good relationship? She's like, no, of course it's not. Like, you know, like, and like the most New York way ever. Like, you know how matter of fact they are about bad news, you know? Like,
here it is.
Yeah, like, like, okay, like, that's pretty bad. Do you need a hug?
Right. No, I'm good.
Good. Oh, man. But yeah, I love that about them, man. So, let's see. So, you talk about Jimmy Dugan, man. Tom Hanks, he killed it, man. Every time out, he kills it, you know. But I love this role so much for him. I saw some improv, you know. I'm like, they couldn't have written certain things, you know. Like, you know, when he yelled at Evelyn, the famous "There's no crying in baseball," but then later on, when she messes up, he wants to yell at her, but he's...
Yeah.
I'm like, yo, that's Tom. That is Tom. That's not in the script, man.
No.
You know? And after him and Harvey, you know, Harvey recruits him to manage at his house. Of course, his big intro was when the girls are getting ready. He's completely wasted. He walks past them and he does the longest piss in cinema history.
Yeah. Maybe rivaled by Austin Powers.
Oh yes, man. Yeah, they beat it. They beat it. They knew where the bar was. Yeah. Mike Myers knew where the bar was. Yeah, man. No, that was great though.
Complete.
Yes, man. But you know, and I'm always trying to figure out, you know, visual storytelling and what they're doing. What is that moment capturing? And when you're talking about this whole essence of men just having this having autonomy in this world, you know, and he could just walk inside. I think my glasses are about to break, so I'm just gonna take them off. Yeah, but you know, having this autonomy, men having autonomy to just do and say wherever they want, whenever they want. He can just walk into a professional woman's locker room and just take a piss while they're preparing. You know, that to me it was a great way of showing that, basically. You know.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, that is their introduction to meeting one another. And they know who he is before he enters the room, like the
right. Can I get an autograph? He rips it up.
Yeah, and literally takes a piss in their presence. It's like, what does that say?
Right.
Exactly.
That's the world we're in, right? You know?
Yeah. Wow.
So nuts, man. So let's see. They don't have a lot of people in the crowd. And when they go out to play, there's not a lot of people in the crowd. And then, you know, they got the heckler. And, of course, Miss Georgia throws the ball at him. I love that. But that's of course foreshadowing this whole issue of, they're about to go out there and have fun, but of course at the end of the day the zeros and ones are going to catch up with them. And is society ready for the women's league? Because there's no butts in the seats, and eventually they're going to run out of money, and not necessarily run out of money, but Harvey and the owners are not going to keep investing in a product that's not putting out. Mm-hmm. And it harkens to me, that issue harkens to me when it regarding the NBA versus the WNBA. And it's controversial. I know I'm probably going to piss somebody off, but it's controversial because the WNBA, they get paid so little, and it's like, oh well, why not? The NBA help them, and there's actually been situations where they have, and it's such a touchy subject because the NBA brings in like mega millions, like international dollars, like from across the globe, and their salaries reflect that. Versus the WNBA, which is a lot smaller market, and so their salaries reflect that. And so, is it like whose fault is it again? Is it the women's fault? Is it the men's fault for being successful? It's society, Like to me, that lets, like I remember growing up when the WNBA first started, and I was a big Phoenix Mercury fan, and I would watch it all the time, those first few years. But then, I stopped. I did. Just to be honest, for whatever reason, I stopped watching it. But then, what is it? Like, it's not homework. We're all supposed to be just watching TV because we enjoy doing it. So, what is that thing of equality when it comes to that sort of situation where men, if the women's league doesn't start getting butts in the seats, they're just going to get rid of them and bring the men in anyway, because it's supposed to be temporary anyway, right? Like if it's not bringing in money, like look, here are the statistics, man. You see there. Sorry, there's no money.
And that's a frustrating place to be in. And not that I follow sports much, but I'm willing to say that those women are probably just as talented as the men. And where society has caught up, like, they're not having to wear skirts, which is great. They can more play by their own rules. But it's like, right. Okay, you're playing by equal rules, and the playing field, I don't know much about it. Maybe level, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, and like you said, like the numbers don't add up.
Right.
And that just makes a tick go off in my brain of like looking at how we hire. I've been on crews where I'm the only female.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Not like entire crew, but like department. Sorry, let me narrow it down. Department.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But and same with like some male-dominated departments. Like look around a set. How many women are in camera, grip, and electric? And I think it goes back to how we define a male-female role.
Right.
And I think men are used to seeing men play sports, not as much with women, and women. Oh, you're not supposed, not necessarily, but I'm just generalizing. Oh, women aren't supposed to like sports. Like there's that patriarchy at play. So I think we just haven't like evened out as a society of what's okay to like and be interested in.
Yeah.
And going back to, hiring in department, it's like, okay, in some instances, I genuinely, and I'm probably going to get some hate for this, but I don't care. I genuinely believe that like certain people, those are the best people in those roles.
Right.
But that's the problem of like, because, minorities haven't had literally the opportunity. They may want it just as much, but they just haven't made the right connections. They haven't been at the same tables, and there's only it's a two-way street. There's only so much one person can do. You can be knocking on as many doors as you want, but someone has to open it.
Right. Exactly.
So I feel like, I don't know, when, like, as my sphere of influence grows, that's something that I want to address of, I don't care what kind of department it is. You have to hire a female and someone in, some kind of minority.
Right.
And that's just like really 2 slots, but that's a start.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. They have the Rooney Rule in the NFL where you have to interview a black coach every time there's a head coach vacancy on your team. I think there's stuff like that that's definitely helpful. And touching on what you're worried about getting backlash for, I know you're always going to upset somebody.
Yeah.
And it makes me think about, men and women in sports, and it also makes me think of, especially before desegregation between blacks and whites, where it was, all right, if a black person wanted an opportunity to get a scholarship at Harvard, so versus the education and the sustenance or provision that upper class white person would have versus a black person that might be super smart, but they never have the provisions to be able to nurture that. So whatever test, whatever barometer that there is in order to get that scholarship, can you blame the establishment for picking the person that literally did better? But it's not because they say, oh, it's not racist. I mean, look at the scores. He just did a better job. And then you look at that with sports, and I mean, now that's definitely the example I just gave was a franchise versus the disenfranchised. But when you talk about sports with men and women, it's, there are certain things, like I just believe in the yin and the yang of the universe. It's not about what's better or what's worse. I think what's awesome about being a woman is awesome. There are certain things that you guys do better, in my opinion, and it's because of scientific physiology and mental, all of that stuff. There's just things that you ask professionals, like I'm a filmmaker, but if you talk to doctors and and all that, they will tell you that they're like quite pragmatically that there are just things that women are better at doing, and quite literally when it comes to also the patriarch has created the appraisal of sports and where it's at in society. The fact that professional sports is so amazing and that people get paid so much money to do it, that's the patriarch. Like, who's the, like, that probably should be brought down a bit anyway, because there's like teachers and social workers that but it's the athletes that are like gods, right? What does that mean anyway? But being that is what's established, unfortunately, the patriarch is embedded in that, because guys are physically bigger. We just are. It's just the way that it is. And unfortunately, when I watch the Olympics, I always aim to watch gymnastics, because I think it's amazing, because it's not, I wouldn't even try to do what they do because I don't have it. And I'm just like, it's more amazing to me than watching like football or basketball, because most of the time when I'm watching football or basketball, part of me is like, I could do that. I was like, I'm trying to break it down, but what's so mesmerizing about gymnastics to me is that I know I could not do that. I'm not even going to try to get on top of that beam. Whatever y'all doing is great, but I mean they're great at doing it, and it can't necessarily be redone by a male. And unfortunately, you look at the numbers, look at the 40-yard dash, and look at the records and all of that. Unfortunately, it's just that men are more equipped to be able to do it. So maybe that's why they're getting paid more to do it. Maybe that's why more eyes go there, just because they're just bigger.
You bring up an interesting point of what is the natural strengths of each gender of and also like figure skating is another one that I really enjoy watching, that I feel like it's kind of along the same lines of why I enjoy watching gymnastics, of like it's very athletic. And the thing that I like about figure skating is it combines dance, so something a little more artistic versus athletic.
Right.
And also like going back into like the male female roles, and like the shame that men experience if they go into the quote unquote woman's world. Right. Yeah.
Whether
they're straight or not.
Like a male cheerleader, Yeah.
That frustrates me.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Because and to me, that's when, it's all about the balance. And to me, it's also, it's backwards. When we are labeling things before they come to us, to me it's like they should come to us, and then we could say maybe our judgment upon it. But it's not, to me. It's like, if you're a male cheerleader, or if you're a female football player, let's give you that. All right, you are a female football player. That's it. Congratulations. Like, there's no women in football, right? We're getting there. We're almost there, Tom. We're almost there, Tom. But there's no women there. There's no men in cheerleading. No, get rid of that. It's like, oh, you want to be a football? You want to be a female football? Great. All right, now do your thing, right? And now we can say what that is, But it's just we just get too scared, with the things that we don't understand and stuff, and I just think that, in a fear-based, society, a fear-based individual versus abundance, where there's not only can we all be amazing, we need, the world, we need each other to all be amazing. We need all of us to be our best versions of ourselves. So why even go that route? Why even go in this sort of judgmental, insecure place? But we know why, because it's because of fear, right? It's because it's like this. The system can kind of sometimes be sitting on a house of cards, essentially, where it's it looks great, but just one touch at it and it'll all crumble because everyone's afraid of being stripped of whatever little power that they think that they have. But it's just a way of thinking more than the fact,
Yeah, whatever power they think they can have, that really landed with me. Mm-hmm. Whatever is given can be taken away.
Just like that.
It's not even yours.
Right, and it happens over and over and over again, and it's so amazing at how we can repeat history sometimes. It's like people get power and and just forget. It's just it's so weird how. Hold on, a league. I'm always trying to do more than one thing at the same time, and it is my gift and curse in life. All right, saving this and back to our scheduled program. All right. But yeah, it's definitely a thing where it doesn't matter. The goals should be the matter. In sports, that emblem, that an NBA emblem, that NFL emblem, if it's America, right? That flag, the world, whatever. I don't know. There's no world symbol. Is it the globe? I don't know. But that should be what matters, right? Yeah. It shouldn't be whatever else. But unfortunately, here we are. And I just think that, my favorite rapper, Nas, he has this song in a quote where he goes, men hate what they don't understand, or fear what they don't understand, hate what they can't conquer. Guess it's just inferior man. So,
okay.
Right, so, and I take that with me all the time, because it's just, if we want to understand things so much.
Yeah.
So sometimes when you see that unicorn, or when you see that person that's like, I can do anything, you're like, whoa, bro. Whoa. I don't understand that. What makes you think you're allowed to do that? And that's why we want to fizzle people's light out so bad, because we want to have an understanding so much, right? Which is kind of why.
That's fascinating. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, man. We see it, even though we don't necessarily call it out all the time, but we see it, we feel it when somebody is kind of acting like that, right?
And it's like, and then too, with some of the systemic changes I want to see in film, I feel like there's going to be some battles of who do you think you are, or someone trying to second guess my experience, but a lot of great inventors, influencers, whatever you want to call them, did things at a young age,
right,
and changed the game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I don't care who you are, what age you are, is if you have that gem that is gonna change things for the better, it's like I said, at least listen.
Right. Yeah. And you're in a best case scenario, sought after, right? It's oh yes, thank God, yes, we needed that fresh take on things, right? But most of the time, that old person they're like, oh, I had to go through 20 years, and who does this little kid think
pay
they
your
are,
dues.
right? You know,
It's like, is that fair or is that not?
Right,
I'm conflicted about that.
I know, man. It's such a conflicted situation. You know, the saying of, you know, standing on the shoulders of giants, and the whole idea of that is that the giants have already gone up to that height. So now that all you have to do is climb atop them. You know, there's still that process of climbing, you know, but it's supposed to be easier because the giant is there, you know. Like another rap lyric, Jay-Z, he goes, Hove did that, so hopefully you won't have to go through that.
Oh yeah.
You know, so you know what I mean? So it's like, you know, like I went through this, so now you good, my man. Like, guess you can learn via knowledge, my knowledge, instead of your experience, you know?
Right.
Which would be nice, but until then.
And I think everyone has a different definition of, you know, when someone has quote unquote earned an opportunity, is like, especially in the studio world, like you said, you have a master's, you have great experience under your belt, and it's like, at what point is it gonna be enough? And like, I feel like, especially we're both like 10 years into this, of just like, we're knocking on doors. Someone let us in.
Yeah, man.
And it's like, just because I haven't paid your dues in the way you want it to be done doesn't mean like all this experience counts.
Right.
And I feel like that's so hard to translate in like essentially the elevator pitch of like, not just for our projects but for ourselves.
Right. Definitely.
Yeah.
This is beautiful talk, guys. Thank you so much for this, Michelle.
Absolutely.
This is why I do this. And if any point you gotta go to the bathroom, anything, you let me know. You want to take a break or anything, let me know. All right. But yeah. All right. So we'll get back into it, guys. So I wanted to point out how Miss Georgia, you notice how when they were getting heckled, she was like, "Don't worry, just smile." Because she's Miss Georgia, she knows, she's a model. She was like, men. Or whenever they're booing or whatever, just smile and be pretty. Like, she knows. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I was gonna mention that when you brought her up. Like, all the New Yorkers were just like, you know, kind of had a sourpuss, but she's playing the game.
Right, she knows how to play the game.
Yeah,
you know, for better or worse, right?
Right, and I think that's interesting. Like, you made a really excellent point of like, all these women come from such various walks of life, and it's the combination and the team building and the camaraderie, like. Them bringing all their knowledge is what's able to get them to achieve what they achieved.
Right, exactly. Because it was their greatness that made the league live on even after the war, right? If only for 11 years, but still, it was them being great. So, you know, so we talked about Jimmy sitting and sleeping throughout the entire game, and he doesn't really care about the team. He's just there to get paid.
Wave his little hat.
Right, yeah. He's like, Tom, man. Tom. Love that guy, man. So, and he gets credit. Like, they're like, oh, like they won, and they're like, oh, what a great idea by Jimmy. Like, he's like scratching his nuts. Like, you know, they're like, it's like, and Dottie's managing the team, essentially.
Yeah.
You know? So, let's see. He says he doesn't have ball players. He has girls. So, you know, his arc is realizing the value in them, and in him finding value in them, he finds value in himself, right?
Yeah.
You know, because he didn't have value in himself. He didn't have any cartilage in his knee, so he wasn't good enough to be sent out to the war, right? So that's the whole reason why he's there in the first place. He's an alcoholic.
I was going to say, wasn't that self-inflicted from his fall from the alcoholism?
Right, exactly. Yes, exactly. Yes. And so, and again, you know, when somebody feels like the best of their years are behind them, now that's a scary place to be. You know, we always talk about how we want our magnum opus, but it's also like a be careful what you wish for, because the day after, you know, and if you hadn't fell in love with the process, or if you found identity in yourself in the high times, you know, when you identify yourself as your accomplishments, sometimes you lose yourself when you're not accomplishing anymore, right?
Yes. And going back to something you said earlier of like the grind of like, and now having a family of, I really don't want to lose my identity in my work, even though it is also happens to be my passion. Not everyone's passion is their work. But like, I feel like just as Americans in general with our culture, our identities are so tied to our work. And then like when someone loses a job, you know, they just lose their sense of self and confidence.
Right. When we ask each other, what do you do? Right.
Yes.
You mean, how do you get paid every day, right?
Yeah, I don't like that question.
I feel you. I don't either. Because by definition, I don't do anything.
That's not true.
If you looked at it that way, anyway. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also this culture of like, I don't know. I try not to like, you know, shame people for like things that I find important, but then of like, you know, take travel for instance, like that takes resources and not everyone has those resources. And then other people, you know, like going back to Dottie's character, probably doesn't care to, like, that's not where her passions lie.
Right.
But then what's lovely about life of like meeting new people and new perspectives is like, wow, I didn't know about that.
Right. I didn't know I could live like that, right? I think that's what's really cool about our industry too. I'm my own producer, so I'm not ignoring you. I'm just making sure that all of our awesome words are still being recorded.
Yeah, absolutely.
but almost lost what I was saying. That's what's cool about our industry in that the career are successful. I have air quotes. The successful career looks so many different ways. It's the gift and the curse, right? Because we don't, it's a very effervescent, very like nebulous career where like what do you do or what it like you're working with the props department now, right now, right? But you're I would not define you as a prop.
I'm disguised.
Right. That's the last thing. I mean, when you told me that's what you were doing, I was like, that's great. I knew that there was something that you were doing. I knew you had a hustle, but that's not Michelle. You asked me who's Michelle. Like, Michelle's an independent filmmaker. She's a producer, right? To me, you know. So, but it's like, what does that look like? So a producer could look like, you know, Brad Pitt doing, you know, the next Ocean's 20, you know, or him executive producing his own film, or it could be, you know, it could be Michelle working on her first feature, right? And then there's also a thing of, you know, are you Spike Lee teaching in between gigs at NYU and working on your next film, or are you, you know, Mr. Blank or Mrs. Blank that teaches at, you know, the Art Institute of Vermont or something, you know, what is, you know, what, like working on your, you know, in between your gigs and in between your stuff. Did something fall? What fell now?
Yeah. It's the bottom of the frame there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, those are always falling off. This is a house of cards. This entire set is a house of cards. Like, you touch anything, it could go down. Oh man. So it reminds me of being on set in general, where people are like, where is Hollywood? Or, you know, they watch the final movie, you know, like, oh wow, like that's so cool, right? Like, that is something that lasts for like a couple of moments, or like a bunch of the best in their craft set all this stuff up at this one location, and it's there for just a moment, and then the best actress or actor in the world, after they've been pruned and primmed and put their makeup on and memorize their lines, they get sat down and they capture it, and then it's just like that. Like, where is that? Like, where, like, you know, watch your favorite film. Where is that? That's nowhere. Like, that's the only place that it lies is, you know, in that final cut, right?
Yeah, and going back to the emotional journey of, you know, filmmaking and going back to defining your success. Actually, let me backtrack further. I really appreciate some actors I've met in my life. They are the most hustling hustlers.
Wow.
Because I don't know how accurate this statistic is, but they have to audition 100 times to get a role.
Right.
And that's something as crew that we don't maneuver as much. And I think it depends on where you're at. Like with below the line crew, I have way more opportunities, but for directing, there is one director.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, shout out to the performers. They yes, it's incredible the lifestyle that they, even when, because I act, but I don't have a actor's, career per se, and I've chose not to do that for that very reason. I kind of, I want everything to be in my hands all the time. I'm like control freak, but I mean, to have the audacity to live that sort of lifestyle, and it is not, again, it's not the 1%. Like being a working actor is a thing, and being okay with that and all those struggles. I salute to all of our performers, man. It's amazing what they do. And when you're talking about all those no's, I think about it for us too, in terms of producers and directors and indie filmmakers in general. We gotta go through. They're not auditions, but I was just talking to. So I have 3. We're always in development, pre-production, production, or post. All of us, right? All of us are. So technically, I have 3. One of my 3 scripts that I'm working on are in development. Those are gonna be hopefully my feature, and each of them have their own paths. Each of them have their own particular paths, but what I am realizing, and what I was just talking with somebody who was I was telling them about one of my ideas, and they're like, "Oh, so what are the steps to it?" I was just like, "Well, I have to, really what it is. Like on average, they say it takes like 3 to 7 years to get a film actually done, and." What? Oh, I didn't know that. That's the person I'm talking to. What? No, man, it doesn't take that. I'm like, yeah, man. I was like, there's a lot of people with babies, Scorsese and Spielberg, they have babies that they still haven't gotten filmed yet,
Yeah.
And what I was trying to explain to them was I need to buckle down and prepare myself, make this look, whether it's the script or the pitch deck or talking to people, getting my pitch down, keep writing, whatever that looks like. I need to prepare myself, and I only attach myself to stories, to projects that I know that, again, I'm willing to go through round 30 for, because I'm going to have to go through so many no's. I already know that. I'm going to have to deal with so many people looking at me dead in my eyes like I have a horn growing out the middle of my head. They're going to, like, I'm not giving you any money, or I'm not going to, attach myself to this project. Who are you? Who do you to think that you can do this, right? I already know that's going to happen. We know that that's a part of the process, and it's those thousands of no's that we have to kind of understand as part of our process.
It's a bit of a numbers game.
Yeah, and Thomas Edison, I don't know whether this is true or not, but somebody started it. So, and it's too poetic not to say, but, I guess somebody maybe walked up to Edison at some point in time and was like, "Oh man, like you've tried so many ways to make the light bulb and you failed. It's like so hundreds of ways and you never did it." And he goes, "Well, actually, correction, I actually found hundreds of ways not to invent the light bulb."
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
Right? Yes, right. And I love that way of thinking, because when you were telling me about, the film that was in Georgia Shorts with Child Indigo, oh man, he's talking about the VFX, and I'm really glad that the final product ended up the way it did. In my head, it's like, man, though that project is so many like camera tests and things that didn't go right, and then even what finally showed up wasn't necessarily the way I saw it, but it's the way we freaked it and made it work. Yeah. And that's our career, right? That's filmmaking essentially, right?
Well, and that's why I say fix it and prep like as much as you can, because there is a trial and error to filmmaking, right, and finding your voice, and to me that's where I want to be paying my dues.
Right.
And what's really I feel like a unique challenge to filmmaking is we need resources and a team.
Right.
It's not something you can practice on your own, really.
Right.
especially with directing, like, I can't just, I'm going to practice directing today.
Right. Yes, exactly. I was just telling somebody that we're, saying yes to another project that I'm working on. Another writer, a producer brought me on, and just talking about why I'm doing it for many reasons. But then it's like, we take for granted those moments of directing. When you're talking about getting those, was it 10,000 hours that Malcolm Gladwell talked about? But it's like we're really getting those hours in as a filmmaker. There is finite, amount of time to where you have all these people around you that believe in the project and are willing to do what it takes to execute it. You should take those moments, it's very, very
precious.
Yes, extremely.
Because as we know, it takes a lot to even get to that moment.
Right.
And then post-production is really challenging. It can take a lot just to get the film to the finish line. I've seen a lot, and it's just sad and I think this is where it comes down to, as we're discussing, film will test your resiliency.
Yes,
It'll give you plenty of reasons to, give up, throw up your hand. And I think that's also, especially as a director, you got to be a leader of the people, and know how to speak all the different languages of all your different artists between cast and crew. Embracing that process of that is practicing, your directing style is
definitely,
and your pre-production time and your post-production time is not just, on set, even though, like, I don't know, those are always the days that I most look forward to.
Right. Yeah, man. Production days are great, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. I definitely believe, that my strengths do lie in, the traits you need for the production days. I build, as a photographer, I think that's where I'm learning the most all the time, because I've definitely came into the industry as a storyteller, as a writer, and as a, PAing. So I just understood things. It's almost from a producer standpoint, just very procedural. I would take things. So I love pre-production. I have a lot of fun in pre-production. But yeah, there's nothing like those production days, man. I don't take them for granted. I enjoy them so much. So true.
Yeah, and that's where the meat is made. Like you have the story originated in prep, but as far as the execution, whatever you have is what you have in post, unless you have the resources for any reshoots.
Right.
Which I strive not to, and even when I feel like, oh, that would have been nice to have, I'm like, I'm going to make it work.
Right. I feel you. Yeah, man. Exactly with our thrifty filmmaking, right?
Yeah.
So, let's see. So, the women, they win their game in the Peaches. They play for the Peaches, and they're a good team. They're winning games, and the women decide to sneak out to go and hang out at Sud's Bucket at a juke joint. Madonna so eloquently conspired to figure out, and they go out and they enjoy the night, they dance, and my girl Marla, she steals the show with her beautiful performance. It had to be yo.
Oh my gosh. And the guy's just like melting on the column.
Right, yeah, he's just yes, that was beautiful, right? But again, just talking about visual cinematic language, that's just showing how much it does not matter. It doesn't matter if she wasn't classically beautiful, right? She found her spouse, and she stood out amongst all of those other women, right? And found her spouse that night, right?
Well, and I love when you have moments in life where you're just like, you're on fire, like you're so coming. And like, as her father said, he's like, don't blame me. Like, I only raised her as a son. Like, I don't know.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. I loved her father.
They're goodbye. And then a thing that I paid attention to that I didn't catch before is like, as the train is leaving and the reflection is an American flag, and all these women are like leaving their nest, leaving their place of home and security, and it's like, cool. Wow, that is a bit of the American way of like, leave and fly and find yourself and your truth and your power. And
man.
I just really liked that visual moment.
That's beautiful. I loved you pointing that out. That is so true, man.
But real quick to circle back,
Please.
when she was Madonna said we just threw, or Rosie said we just threw a dress on and this is what happened.
Right.
Of like, I think she was able to tap into a new part of herself where she felt beautiful, and beauty will always be recognized.
Right. Yeah, man. It was like she finally, like, the girls did her up. The rest of the women, like, actually put her in a wardrobe that actually made her feel pretty, versus her dad, who never did that, right? Who self-admittedly said he didn't know how to do that, but the women helped her out. She got right, and she went and got her man. Yeah. Shout out to Marla.
Well,
and hitting sluggers still.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, and I also want to touch on, like, it wasn't, because when we first meet her, her hair's covering her face, she's slumped over, but then, like, she's, upright. I think that just helped tap into something inwardly. Like, sometimes we have to change an outward elements in order to awaken something inward. So I don't want to put it all on, like, oh, she, got all dolled up and that's what happened,
Right. No, it's true.
That just was the catalyst.
Yeah, exactly. And I've had an ex from years back. She was into fashion design, and she was who helped me appreciate fashion a lot more, because I thought like, everybody knows me from high school. I would wear flip-flops and, like, my practice jersey. Like, that was Frank. That was me, and what she had told me at the time, I was just like, man, I don't have no fashion. She was like, fashion is everything. Fashion is what people see. It's how you represent yourself. It's like when you are, it's like you look good, you feel good. People look at you in that way. They look at you in that light, and that's who you are, or whatever. And I was like, I don't care about fashion, man. Like, I rock. She was like, I just wear whatever, Like, if it's something like a few years old or something nobody cares about, I just throw it on and it's fine. And you're like, yeah, and that's how you look, and that's how people see you. I was like, hold up, bro. Hold up. Don't be touching my nerve now. Don't be touching my nerve. Man. Just hearkening into that like, yeah. It really is something. It really is something about that element that is fashion and representing yourself. Captain America said, if you're gonna go into a war, you need a uniform, right? And it's kind of that same thing where it's putting that makeup on, getting your hair done. Man, there ain't nothing like confidence than the day after you get your hair done, right? Like, you're just feeling good, you're light. Yes, I can attest, because I have a hairstylist, so I can attest to that. But, there's nothing superficial about it at all. It's real as rain.
Yeah.
Real as rain. So, let's see. Jimmy makes... Oh, yes. So, Evelyn makes her mistake, and then Tom Hanks goes on to give the most epic rant in cinematic history. Are you crying? He was like, I went through this, and this, and my manager kicked me out while my mom was watching. He was like, and did I cry? No. You want to know why? Because there's no crying in baseball.
Oh my God. And she's just like, no.
Are you crying? No.
Oh my gosh.
I love that, man. That was beautiful. That is just Tom Hanks at his best. Love that guy, man. And it's just, when you can have fun with something, when you are in it and you get it so much, when you cast somebody and you just know that they got it. Like, they are just in sync with that character. They know more about that character than you do.
Yes.
Like, that's how I felt about that character, Jimmy Dugan. I was like, Tom Hanks knows that character more than anybody else in the world. Like I don't know if Jimmy Dugan was a real person or not. I never looked that up, but
yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, the way he moves, because not only the knee thing, but like, going back to that outward appearance is such a reflection of the inner world at times.
Right.
Just all the little the little nuances he gave that character for the physicality, like,
yes.
yeah, like you pick up on it immediately. And yeah, that's just his genius of as an actor of going. I love when actors do that, like going to it to a whole nother level. And I feel like I do a pretty good level when like, because I write most of the stuff I direct,
Right.
but I love when actors can push it even more.
Right.
And it just enhances the storytelling. I love that.
Right. Yeah, man. I shot a short film. It was my buddy's coming of age that I turned into a short film. He passed away a couple of years ago of cancer.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Sorry
man.
to hear that.
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you. But we did it, man. We did a short film. I'm really excited about it. And we casted these 4 young black teenagers, and a lot of them were from the South already. So I'm constantly asking myself and really stressing out because, Grip's not here for me to be like, hey, is this your story? Is this real? Because I am from Maryland. My dad's a country boy from Central Virginia, and I grew up there until I was like 9 years old or so. But at the end of the day, I'm a Maryland boy. We're somewhere in the middle. We're a confused bunch, us DC, Maryland folks, the DMV area, what up? But what was so amazing was, like, these kids, they knew these characters more than me. So once they got to know each other and they got to walking around and they was just talking to each other, yeah, boy. I'm like, man, somebody press the record button. They're like, it's lunchtime. I don't care. This is it. This is what the story is.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's definitely what I felt with Mr. Dugan. And let's see. So, oh my gosh. And then he goes to the umpire. He goes, you look like a penis with the little hat on.
Get out of here.
I'm done laughing, man. He said, man, you look like a penis with that little hat on. He went in on my dog, man.
Yep.
Alcoholic. He has issues, guys. He has some coping skills he needs to build.
He's a mess.
So we touched on how Lewinsky came and told them that the league, they might be getting rid of the league because there's no butts in the seats. And then, of course, Dottie takes that and immediately goes and just does some Harlem Globetrotters, does the splits and catches the ball, to get them out. They take the picture, and that's supposed to symbolize, now people are going to start getting interested because of all the little dinks and doodads, all the sprinkles that only a woman could do. Like, I mean, there ain't no men in the major leagues doing the splits to catch to catch a foul ball, right? And then, but it was also kind of whack too when the whole catch a foul, get a kiss.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, they just had to do that.
Guys would never do that.
Right? They had to do it, right? They couldn't help themselves. I mean, but then of course it probably worked too.
Yeah. Well, that was All the Way May. That was executing those things, and that was her field of work a bit.
Right. See.
I think that's like playing the game, even though it can be kind of dirty at times, and.
She kind of would have been doing it if it wasn't for the league. She would have still been doing it, but the fact that they asked her to do it, still, it's just is what it is, I guess. And then I really love the touch on where the black females, they saw the ball and threw it at them. She's like, "Hold up," and it's like a. Not quite yet. We're not there yet. We're not there yet, guys. That we're still dealing with. White women being able to get their stuff, much less being black and a woman, right? So I love that they were able to touch on that.
I love that you brought up that moment. Yeah, I forgot because it's such like a quote unquote small moment, but you're absolutely right. It's like showing, oh, I can do this too, and they're like, yeah, you really damn
you
good.
Really
But yeah, it's without having to say anything, like they respect, like that head nod. The woman knew it, like. It wasn't the right time.
Right.
But they knew they had the goods.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Love that you brought the goods in. Yeah, man. I love so much when I'm always asking myself as a filmmaker what is my visual language for this project. And I'm always looking for those moments where there's no dialogue and you just see it all there, and that was a perfect example where that was all a cinematic language there. And that's why we watch the movies, is that scene right there where it's just so thick with so many layers and nobody had to say anything. We all understood it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, those little silent nuggets. And I, doing short films, as we said, it takes so much to make a short film. So I purposely choose ones that are hard to achieve so that I can really exercise that muscle, because as you said, those times are precious when we're directing.
Right.
And I've tackled a Western and then also a modern silent short film. So
cool.
Yeah. And doing a silent film, you're exactly right, of thinking of take Nomadland for example. So much of that movie was very quiet and very visually driven. I really am interested to read the screenplay of that. I'm especially where they drew, I don't know how much they casted actual actors because it had that realism to it.
Right.
And going back to your point of when you were doing your short of just you see a moment and you capture it. I wonder how much of that was how that movie was made.
Yeah, man. I respect so much when people can kind of catch those improvisational moments, how to capture that on a film set, right? Where to me, it's again, I'm like a control freak. It's I gotta know everything before in advance, right? But, you talk about Nomadland, and I love Nomadland, and it's crazy that it must be in the zeitgeist because my short film is essentially it's a world away, but it's the same thing about people choosing to live a different lifestyle away from society. That is my buddy's original script was called Hobo Jungle.
Okay.
And the boys kind of called it that because there were these homeless people that lived. There was a houseless community that lived in the woods, and they just chose this alternative life instead of living out there. But in it probably. I wish when I was thinking about how to cast the feature, I was like, man, I would love to have actually gone into a place that was like that, right? But then you'd have to deal with. Then in my head, my neurotic head, I'm like, but then you gotta put all this controlled substance around it, in order to kind of cage it, right? But yeah, man, to capture those real moments, right? Shout out to Nomadland. I really enjoyed that film.
Yeah.
Really, so let's see. So Jimmy gives Dottie a telegraph. It foreshadows the whole situation with everyone waiting for their husbands, hoping that their husbands would come home. She tells Jimmy right then that she'll leave the team when Bob, her husband, comes back, but he says that she loves the game too much and that he won't, or that she won't. And we will find out later on what her decision will be. I'm going to touch more because that's kind of my final point. Dottie's journey. I'll get more into that when we get towards the end. So Jimmy, of course, he's an alcoholic, and we talked about his best days being behind him. And this is when he admits that his cartilage is gone in his knee. That's why he didn't go to the war. And let's see, Lois theme. That's when he talks about what you said when he was talking to Harvey. Harvey was saying he's going to get rid of the league, and he goes, man, they just got this taste of work, And I found out, I didn't say it on air, did I? It was Rosie something. I know, right? Hold on, let me look at it. World War II, Rosie.
The Riveter.
The Riveter, yes. Rosie the Riveter, that's her. But essentially what they're saying is sending Rosie back home, after being out at work and playing.
She's like, I got these muscles
right,
now.
yeah, I got all these muscles, I'm ready to go, man,
Yeah.
But I would have to really dig back into history, really know what the politics look like. I think that industrialization really ended up helping, a lot of minorities just because there needed to be work. And right after it was right after the First World War that our economy had kind of gotten out of the gotten out of the depression and the darkness and anything anyway, and we went right into World War II essentially. So right after World War II, it was kind of that's kind of America's apex. You know, I feel like when they say "Make America Great Again," that's kind of what they're talking about. It's like the 50s, I Love Lucy,
yes.
Mary Tyler Moore, you know, Buy the Vacuum and all those things, right? You know.
Make her happy with a blender.
Really?
And The Father of the Bride, I love that part.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, man. Oh my gosh. Another classic, another 90s classic. All right, so let's see. Kit, in the kitchen isn't fair. Kit, after this, getting sat. No, he's always right. Oh, yeah. So Kit isn't playing well, and then Dottie agrees that she needs to get sat because her pitches are getting soft. She said they're like grapefruits out there, you know? And again, this is this tension between her and Dottie where, you know, Dottie was she was right. You know, that like it happens to pitchers all the time. You just kind of losing and you got to get sat so that a reliever or a closer comes in. But Kit is just too much of an animal. She's like, no, let me go. And Dottie's kind of saving her from, you know, getting, you know, kind of really making herself look bad. And afterwards, I love, you know, that sort of that conversation between them where Kit is just like, man, it's just that you're always right, man. It's just like, I know that you're right, but dang, you're always right, man. I hate that, you know?
Yeah.
And so with that tension, that's when Dottie is like, all right, well then I'll just leave, thinking that she's going to assuage this situation. But actually, the Lowenstein is like, goodness gracious, you're our best player. This is the worst thing ever. and then also the Peaches, you know, if Dottie left, it didn't matter whether or not she, you know, Kit said anything or not. If Dottie left, they would have hated Kit so much for that. And it was,
right.
You know, especially with that, you know, their little tit for tat thing that they have going on. It just sucks how much, you know, stuff is inherited and Kit kind of having to take the brunt of their relationship all the time, right?
Yeah, and with Kit, you know, where she knew in hindsight that Dottie was right for taking her out, is to not take criticism personally.
Right. Yeah.
That is so hard at times.
That's cool. That's cool of you to say that. Yeah. I think I probably learned that without realizing that, you know, in my younger days in athletics. But you're right. Where taking your pride out of, again, your accomplishments, you know, and out of your judgments, it's important for better or worse because if you identify yourself with the up times, you're Jimmy Dugan, and if you identify yourself with the low times, then you're Kit.
Yeah.
Right? You know? It's all about the balance, right?
Yeah, and then with Jimmy Dugan, like some people, you know, get their heights kind of early on, and then they just quote unquote celebrate that for the rest of their life and keep looking back. Oh, yeah. It
sucks because you never found a real purpose, man, and you know that there's just some fruits that they don't even know or exist because they haven't kind of expanded their self, you know, their inner self.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. So as they get dressed and sing, begs her not to leave. All right. Oh man! And then the telegram comes. The deadly telegram comes. That scene. That's one of my favorite shots. Again, visual storytelling.
Yeah.
Don't need any dialogue. You know, he comes in, and you know Jimmy snatches it from the telegram from him, and he just slowly walks through. That is like I'm getting goosebumps. That walk was just so
so long.
Oh my gosh, that's a long walk, you know, and it was just so thick with emotions, man. And then from the finally walk up to Betty Spaghetti, you know, finally telling her that her husband passed, man. That was just Betty. Was one of my faves. I thought she was gorgeous, and I loved her character in itself. She just seemed like she had a nice grounded, matriarchal kind of ambiance to her that I kind of loved, even though she didn't have a lot of lines, you know. But yeah, man, Betty and she was sitting right beside Dottie, so you know Dottie got that, you know, like as he just went right over to the side of her, like, oh my gosh, man, could you picture that, man?
Yeah.
Like, yo, you ain't, and all that whole walk, he kept walking closer and closer to her. It's just like, close my eyes, like I don't want to see this, like, you know, no, don't give it to me, right? It's like, oh my gosh, that was just such a
And it was that shot choice and movement was a great way for the audience to experience what the characters were going through. Because we were like, who is it gonna be?
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like, to put a little bit of a comedic spin, it's like we think it's gonna be Dottie with the way the camera's going, and then all of a sudden shit is like, whoa.
Right, yeah. And it's just like, man, just like that, you know, even though it didn't happen to her, you're just like, man, this is the times that they're dealing with, right? And then that's just also, that's also hearkening unto a strength that these women, not just how great they are at playing baseball and balancing that and giving themselves this opportunity, but it's also, you know, with the backdrop of the war and what that looks like to them, right? You know?
Yeah.
So.
And speaking of women, when the one woman brings her angel son to travel
Stillwell.
with them.
Yes, man. Yes.
You're gonna lose.
Yeah.
What a little brat.
I know, right? Oh my gosh. Madonna wanted to kill him.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna kill your son.
Right? And it makes perfect sense because they're completely juxtaposed. Like Evelyn versus May, right? You know, they live completely different lifestyles, right? But yeah, man. But lucky for Dottie, it's, I don't know. Bob gets hurt and he has to come back. So he even though it's bad he got hurt, that's a reason for him to have to come back, and she gets to see her husband, right? Mm-hmm. And so of course that you know, they're doing great. They're about to go to the World Series. They're going into the series, and Dottie chooses to leave. My husband's here. This was the plan. Right. This is why I'm here, you know. And I have... Hold on. I have to say...
Oh, God.
When the kids get the autograph from Jimmy Dugan, and they're like, avoid the clap. Jimmy Dugan.
That's like, good advice.
That's good advice. Oh, my gosh. Good old
Such
Jimmy.
Such an anti-hero, yeah.
Good old Jimmy.
Oh my gosh.
And then in a way he kind of symbolizes, and not kind of, he symbolizes toxic masculinity. So even though he found and actually it's not even in spite of the fact that he can make fun of the toxic masculinity, made it so cinematic, you know? So, you know, it was so cool that he is able to find the humor in those little things, because that is the toxic masculinity that we're addressing here, you know?
Yeah, and then I love that scene in the bus where him and Dottie are the only two awake, and they're, you know, talking shop talk a little bit, and he's like, "Oh, what time is it?" And he's like, about to drink, and she hands him a Coke. Yes,
that was beautiful. That was beautiful. Yes, girl. Yes, that was great. Exactly. And he's passing it down to the next generation when he's signing them, you know, that sort of toxic masculinity, right? You know, so yeah, man. So it was definitely, again, just shouting out Tom again and his performance. But Jimmy, you know, when she's going to leave, you know, Jimmy is telling her that he gave 5 years of his career to alcohol, you know, to alcoholism, and what he wouldn't give right now to, you know, get those years back, you know. Right. And he's like, I see that in you. He's telling her, I see that in you. And, you know, she says that it's just hard, you know, it's hard. And he calls her out, and that was the good part. And that's the thing. And that was him rubbing off on her. That was the goodness in him rubbing off on her, where it's like, that's BS. You know, sometimes you're put here to be great, you know, and heavy is the crown, you know. Yeah. You know, like and when people tell me, you know, when people, if I get a compliment about being a great filmmaker, you know, I think of it like that, where you know, you can tell somebody, oh, you're president for the day, and they'll be like, what? Oh man, I'm gonna go get a mansion and travel the world, and you know, and go marry a princess, and you know, gosh, I'm gonna live the dream, right? But then there's somebody else, you're like, you're gonna be president, and then you're like, wow, there's so many people that need help. Yeah. That am I equipped for this? Like, there's so many things that need to happen in the world, and you're just trying to fill up your day with as much knowledge and skill and everything that you can do, and people that can help you execute this position as best as possible, right? And I think that that was the way that Jimmy has seen, at least with baseball. You know, if nothing else, you know, I think that he saw that, you know, to be a great home run hitter, you have to have nights where you're not with your family. You know, like that is just the thing that many a great men and women in the past have had to sacrifice that. And, you know, again, just heavy as the crown, we had to make that choice that, man, if I have been blessed with a certain skill, if I really feel in my heart that I have been blessed with this skill and I have the audacity to achieve it, then I need to do it. I have to. It's a duty. It's a duty to society, to the human race, right? To the whatever that niche is. It's my duty to go out there and be that. And Dottie was the best player in the league. Her team was going to the World Series, and if she was there for the whole series, they would have won. On top of that, if Dottie did not have that talk with Lowenstein and Kit was still on their team, they would have won even more, right? You know, so it's like Dottie doesn't you don't realize sometimes when you are, you know, that leader, sometimes when you don't do that, when you don't lead, you don't realize that the repercussions, that it is a trickle down effect, and it's not just you that's getting affected. It's not just, you know, it's not just Bob missing a couple of nights with, you know, being with you. It is the league suffering, losing money, and women not being able to be in the league anymore, right? You know, it is a way bigger thing that you don't realize it in that moment, because you are just a human, right? You are just a woman that just loves a man, right? So what's that balance, right? It was very well shown.
Yeah, I love the reveal. Like, I was just thinking of like, oh, it would have been so interesting to see her husband be like, oh, you know, maybe he would have said, you know, you clearly love this, why don't you stay? But they don't show that conversation at all. I'm not saying he's the one that prompted her to. Like, I feel like she made that decision herself.
Definitely.
Yeah, but I love when, you know, she pops up from catching and it's her, and like it just takes everyone by surprise. That was such a great reveal. And then, you know, her husband's in the stands and like so proud. That's my wife.
Yes, I love that, right? Wasn't that so beautiful? And again, you're talking about things that aren't in the script. I'm sure maybe the dialogue was in there, but after she stood up, Gina Davis and Tom Hanks, I would love to have been a fly on the wall when they conversed about that scene beforehand, because it was just so thick. It was just so many, so ambiguous, everything. He's like, yo, you can go if you want. Yeah. I guess, you know, you're like, yeah, I guess I'll play. I'll play. Like, you know damn well both of them, like, they're both playing coy, but you know they both want this so bad. He's so proud of her, right? But he doesn't want to like gush all over her, right? And she doesn't want to be like, but you're right, I love the game, like, and it's all there, right? All those layers are right there. I love that scene so much.
Well, that's interesting. I feel like, you know, he tapped into her masculinity and she tapped into his like they were a great balance for each other that way.
That is so cool. I love that, man. I love that.
Because like you said, they weren't gushy.
Right.
That was very much kind of a man's man conversation.
Definitely, definitely left side of the brain. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I agree. That's so cool.
He turns back, we're gonna win.
Yeah, we're gonna win. And opposed to Stillwell. Right. Again, perfect, man. Great cinematic language happening here. So let's see. So they are going through. I want to make sure I don't skip my favorite parts. Oh, yeah. I already said. She says it's hard. I already said when Jimmy Evelyn messes up. That is just the beautiful. I don't care what nobody say. That was not in the script. Dottie shows up for the final game. Let's see. Dottie brings in 2 RBIs and 1 pitch. All right, so it's the bottom of the ninth, and Dottie is against her sister. Dun dun dun. You could cut this tension. This is just a perfect setup. You know, we're constantly in short films trying to figure out how to do this. You know, how do you set this up so that you can create this moment, right? And you again, nobody has to say anything. Like, Kid is out on the mound, Dottie is up. Holy F, right? You're like, what is about to happen right now, right? You're just like...
Just staring each other down.
Yes, man. This is like too hot for TV, right? and man, so Dottie brings in the two RBIs, the two runs that looks like it's going to go ahead and have them win the game, right? I believe it ends up being 2-1, and Kit goes and I think somebody right after Dottie hits a pop fly, and so the inning ends and it's the bottom, and now the Racine Kit's team gets to go up for their turn. So Kit goes into the dugout, and I just felt so bad for her because she just keeps losing, man. She keeps losing, and it's not like a justified loss. It's like she's not stepping up. She's not executing when it needs to happen, and Dottie is being better than her. Dottie does, and it's just so heart-wrenching. You're like, oh, I want it, and I didn't realize how bad I wanted Kit to win. I realized like at first, because you want the picture perfect story, right? You want the peaches, you want all the way May and Rosie and Betty Spaghetti, you want all of them to win, right? But who wanted it the most out of this entire film, and who and in a way whose arc has been the strongest. She had to go through so much. Kit has gone through everything that the other players haven't, and in this moment she is a pitcher. So she failed. That was her thing. Her thing was pitching, and she didn't do it. Like Dottie beat her at her own game. And then she comes up to the bat, or comes up to the mound, and she hits the ball. She brings in the tying run, and then she's like, F it. She crosses, like, the coach is telling her to stop. The third base coach is telling her to stop, but she's like, no, this is my moment. This is years and years of childhood angst. Like, no, I am go. Dottie is like, oh, snap. Like, so she's getting ready. And when she rams into her, and Dottie falls down, and we saw her before hold on to it, which again is great cinematic language. And then she falls down, and also it's the hand that she's been catching all these one-handeds with Rosie and stuff. So again, it's great visual language there. And then she falls, and then she drops it. Crowd goes wild. Kit's team wins, man. And then we look over and we see Jimmy and we see the peaches, and it hurts. But I didn't realize just how right that ending was until it happened. I was like, that was what's supposed to happen, right?
Right. Yeah, she needed that win.
Yeah, man. And she wanted it more than anyone else, probably.
That's a great point of, like, who wants it the most? That's so fascinating because, there is definitely an argument that could be made that maybe she wasn't the most gifted or talented or whatever, but she wanted it the most. And also, I don't know, can we touch too, like, so, and I think to really show that the victory was true, of Dottie wasn't holding back. She was telling the pitcher to throw him high.
Right.
Can't hit him, can't lay off him.
I'm glad that you brought that back, because that was what they set up at the beginning, that she can't lay off of the high pitches, and she can't hit them either. So given to her, right? And then after the 2 strikes, and that Miss Georgia, she was pitching, she gave them 2 heaters. Kid looked over at Dottie. She got better. She learned, and that's what greatness is. So Dottie, in a way, Dottie could never reach that echelon of greatness because she never cared that much.
Right.
But Kit in that moment, a lot of players will tell you, I think actually Kennedy said it, like, greatness is when, like, greatness is thrusted upon you. I completely butchered that dialogue, but it's like those are the greats. You never thought that they were great, but then something happens and then they become great, right? They show up, and that is what's great. That's what makes Kit better than Dottie in so many ways. Maybe Dottie was always naturally more talented than her, but what makes Kit great is that she cares enough to adjust and to get better in that moment. And she said, she told her, Hi. They're about to. She thinks she's about to just throw another high pitch at me. I got something for him, you know.
Yeah.
And that's what greatness is.
Wow.
So, you know, that's what it is. So shout out to Kit for finding her inner G, man. Her, you know what I'm saying? She found that inner me and made it happen, man. She that confidence to go out and be her best version of herself, right? I love that so much. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah, and to me, like, I feel like what may be going through audiences' minds, I know this happened to me, I think the first time I saw, I'm like, oh, did she drop it on purpose?
I was wondering, I was going to ask you that. Right? I'm really wondering that to this day. I don't know.
Well, I don't think she did.
Okay.
Because, like, she was, like, lethal at that point.
Right. She wanted to win, right? You know? Right.
So, no, I don't think that was purposeful.
Right. Yeah, man. I mean, I think that because I don't know, man. I think that to say, because Dottie at the end, she said it. She said that like you wanted it more.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what makes me that's kind of when I had that question as an adult. I didn't have it as a kid, but just now watching it as an adult, I was like, hold up, did she drop it on purpose? But then I think when she went up to Kit and said, man, like, yeah, no, you wanted it more. Now, on one side, you could be devil's advocate and say maybe she just loves her sister that much that she's willing to just bury that L. This is her game. This is her thing. She cares about it more. Let her win. But, yeah, I think you're absolutely right just in that. I mean, to me, at least, it's poetic justice that it's Kit's will that won the game, you know, that at the end of the day. And she got her moment in the sun, you know, everybody cheering her, kids asking for her autograph. And then she realized that, you know, I'm going to stay up here, man. You know, we're a few of us just decided we're going to get a place and get some jobs. And
I love that.
Yeah, man. It's so beautiful. She found her thing. And then, you know, Dottie got to go be with Dottie. I mean, Dottie got to go be with Bob, and it was all beautiful at the end. So yeah, man, I love that so much. So we'll go back to back now we're in current times, and then you're in the film, and man, some of the older women that they casted were like starking, like that looks so much like the older version of the original cast, you know, younger cast. I was like, man, I was like, are these prosthetics or something, right?
I know.
Yeah, like,
I wasn't sure either, but back then it's like I don't think they could have pulled it off.
No, not that well.
Yeah,
I don't know if they could have done it that well now. You know that even with what we see now when they try to de-age people, we're like, what was it the Joe Pesci, Robert De Niro, the Scorsese film.
I was just trying to recall that.
Yeah. To me, it wasn't as much as the look of the. It's not saying that the CGI didn't work. It was more their movements.
Well, that's the thing. They are older men.
Yeah.
Did you watch the behind the scenes on that?
The one on Netflix? Yeah. I saw it when they were talking about it. Yeah.
Where they were like, that was a direction that they often got. Like, you gotta get up out of this chair quicker.
Yeah, man. They're like, we can't.
they're trying.
Right. Yeah, man. I think that was the most distracting thing more than the CGI. Because when Robert De Niro like jumped that guy on the curb and was like stomping him, I was like that I cringed. I was like, that
strange.
That looked bad. I was like, clearly that is not a jovial individual. Jovial. He is not young. But yeah, we go back and great casting because all these women look just like their younger counterparts, and I love all the interactions. As their first thing is Rosie O'Donnell's character throws the baseball at Gina Davis just like back in the day. She's like, "Yep, that's Dottie."
Love that circle back. Yeah.
So that's Dottie. Yep, still the same old. And then there was another character. I really appreciated there was like a husband in the stands that really acted as sort of this new generation, maybe an outsider, a version of us, of a spectator in the movie that's like, who's her? Why are all these women people going around her or whatever? It's like, oh, that's the best player in the league. But she was like, I never saw her. Well, she was only there for a year, you know, and I think that in a way that's what buttons up Dottie's story, you know, and I'll get more into it as I button up the full thing. I want you to talk about it, but I feel like, you know, she was wondering this whole time, you know, whether or not how much of value this whole thing was to her. And I think that just this objective person that was just like, I don't know who she is, but everybody's flocking around her. She's glowing.
Yeah.
Like what, right? You know, it's like what I think that just kind of proves, you know, her worthiness of that in that spot, right?
Her legacy.
Right, yeah, of her legacy, right?
Yeah.
Like it didn't matter it was just a year. It didn't matter that whether or not she was dealing with that or not. You know, it just is what it is. You were just awesome. You're just awesome, babe. Sorry. You're just an incredible person.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and I love that. I feel like going back to, you know, film industry, like we see all these greats and then you have a newcomer like, who the heck is that? And I think all these greats are like, you don't know who that is.
Right.
And I don't know, of just film, especially recently, has just become so big because of all the streaming content and opportunities and etc.
Right.
Of now we have, you know, years. I mean, it's still a pretty new industry, like film. It's not as old as other arts, but there's hundreds and I take that back, thousands of films out there, and there's so many great. So I don't know if you feel this way, but sometimes I'm like, I get overwhelmed by it. It's like, yeah, there wasn't as many greats back then, but now there's like more and more coming out of the woodworks every day.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's why I see too. I'm like, well, do you know who this is?
Right, yeah, man, yeah.
Not trying to make it a battle, but still, like.
Yeah, man, and you know that there is so that in our industry where it's like it's like everybody's judging each other, and they're waiting for you to not know something, right? You know, it's like, oh, you don't know this. That's a reason why I'm better than you, right? It's like,
yeah.
You know. But I mean, again, to me, it shouldn't be about homework. You think about the bevy of knowledge. You know, Scorsese, when he talks, you can just hear how Tarantino, you know that they're just such cinephiles before they even thought about directing. And I have that feeling in a sense where I'm, you know, as a filmmaker, I do have to catch myself where I'm like, all right, if you're not having fun with this, if you're not a fan of this, then, you know, part of me is like, you know, kind of fraternal, like, why are you here? You know, like,
okay.
you know, like part of me, but then I have to catch myself because that, you know, we are, it's an art, it's a craft, it's a skill, and there are so many ways to be able to tell a story. You know, we're storytellers at the end of the day, and who is to tell who what your journey is to get there? If your journey to become a great filmmaker is, you know, not watching a lot of movies, you know what I mean, it's the end product, right? Or what is that? You know, or if you were just if you just watched, you know, poppy, you know, MCU movies and Star Wars, if that's all you did, and that's where you're coming from, then great, you know, then cool. Or
that may be their niche,
right? Yeah, that's your thing, right? You know, it's like cool if you haven't seen Citizens Kane, or if you haven't, you know, watched, you know, Cool Hand Luke or something. It doesn't mean that you're not a connoisseur, right? If you don't know what, you know, like, 400 blows is or something, like, you know, it doesn't mean.
Okay, you got me on that one. I knew that.
No, you're fine. But you know, it's a French film.
Okay.
But if you don't know what these films are, it doesn't mean that if you're not a film connoisseur that knows every single thing, it doesn't. Yeah. What is that? What does that say anyway, right?
Well, then sometimes, you know, when I go off of those recommendations of like, oh, if you're not a true filmmaker unless you've seen this movie, and I'll watch it, I'm like, because, you know, sometimes things don't stand up or the test of time, you know,
right.
or that person resonated with that film because of when it came out at that moment in their lives, and it's always going to have that connection for them. But also, like, yeah, going back to your niche as a filmmaker, like, we can't, not to try to limit, but like, you're going to have a strength in your voice, and that may not be action, that may not be thriller or mystery, you know.
Right.
So it's like I'm more of a cinephile in what I want to become.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like, so it's like, I don't want to be shamed for that. Thank you very much.
Right. Yeah, man. And that's the whole point, right? You know, like, again, it shouldn't be homework, man. Like, you know, we should be enjoying our process, whatever that looks like, right? And honestly, I feel like most folks, whether or not they admit it or not, you know, it's like, I don't know if it's a West Coast LA thing or if it's just the industry in general. It's like I feel like half of the time when they're saying they've seen it or they know what it is, they don't. Like, you know, yeah, I know. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Oh no, I used that I used that camera. Yeah, I know that lens. Yeah, no, you don't. No, like if I asked you 2 more questions, I would find out that you are a lying sack of something.
And then they change the subject.
Right. You ain't seen it.
Oh my gosh. Oh man. Something.
And just I was just gonna say, and me doing this, podcast, like that's it's like I have to constantly. It's not like I have to try to do it, but it's like I have to be honest. It's like I can't be like, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about because it's like written all over my face, right? At least I feel like it. It's like, you know.
Oh yeah, I'm horrible at lying.
I saw that. I know, right? Yes, I get caught every time, right? Yes, that's why I don't do it because I suck ass at it. But yes, but it's just like, yeah, man, it's like, and then I want to learn too, you know, like let me know, why does it mean so much to you? Why did you say it to me? Because I need to know and put it. My wife looks at my list. I have this list of films that people are always telling me about. Whenever somebody tells me about a film and I haven't seen it, I write it down.
Me too.
I mean, at this point, it is pretty long.
Really long. And I always I'm like, if I don't watch it in like a year, don't be offended. Because it's every day, especially in our community.
Right,
like you haven't seen, and that's more my thing. I'm like, oh, you haven't seen this. Like, let me share like why I love this film so much and why I think, like, based on what we discussed, why you would enjoy it. Like, versus like coming at it from like, you haven't seen it, let me give you an education. And I feel like that happens for youth, like when, you know, people are older in this industry and are trying to pass along their nuggets, which I'm all for learning, but sometimes it comes instead of like sharing, it comes across as, oh, let me I don't know, is it talking down?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It kind of becomes this patronizing kind of, for lack of a better term, masturbatorial situation where they're just kind of stroking their own ego kind of thing. Yes, exactly.
And then I'm kind of like, I don't know if I want to take advice from you.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yes, man, yes. I feel you. It's a crazy game we navigating through, right? For better or worse, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to. So we're nearing the end here. So it's been so cool. You guys have heard us kind of go in and out of the film and our filmmaking journeys, and I always love when I have a fellow filmmaker here, just because we're able to do that, and I hope that when other filmmakers listen to this, because I know that mostly it is cinephiles. Why else would you be watching or listening to a podcast called The New Filmosophy if you weren't somewhat of a cinephile, right? So, or in the industry in some way. So I hope that, anybody that's aspiring or that is a filmmaker, scratch inspiring out of your name. You're now a filmmaker. I just said that. And, all those filmmakers, I hope that when we're, venting and, just talking about the things that we think about and we talk to each other about, I hope that all of this is helping you, making you feel like you're not alone and, giving you a couple of tidbits. Hopefully you learned a little something, right? So, again, just thank you so much. And I learned a lot, too. So thank you so much, Michelle.
Yeah, absolutely. and going back to, like, a point that I was making earlier, but never fully came full circle. That's the way my brain works sometimes. With actors, I learned this from an actor's podcast, is like learning how to define your success as an artist is so important, because it's like, is it directing a feature film? Is it acting, having a lead in a feature film? It's like, that may take a while to get to. And then it's like, if you feel like you're going to beat yourself up for not having gotten there throughout the process. So it's like learning to celebrate your wins along the way and we touch on this of like, am I moving the needle? Like sometimes it's hard to know.
Right. Yeah, man, exactly.
Yeah, so it's like we feel and I think that's important to share like along the journey of like, yeah, no, we really are experiencing it, and it's part of the process, part of the journey, part of paying your dues.
Right. Yeah, man, and giving each other those affirmations, right? So
absolutely
beautiful thing, man. So yeah, so I mean, so at the end, you know, they walk through the Hall of Fame. You know, Lowenstein, he's still alive, so he's able to cut the banner, and they're able to walk through. We see that that Jimmy died back in the 90s or back in the 80s, and this so happens to be happening in the 90s, so he probably died a little while back. And Dottie was able to see that, and they were able to sing their song at the end. And then Madonna she made a beautiful song at the end as the credits roll. That they used to be my playground.
Oh,
I love that song so much.
Yeah, that's another tearjerker.
Right? Yes, I have that on one of my playlists. I love that song so much. Yeah, man, that's a beautiful song, and what it symbolizes so much as far as what the game meant to the women. That, you know, it was this moment for them. You know, it was like this sort of beautiful moment, and I don't think it was justice that they only lasted 11 years. I wish that it could have kept going on. I don't know the necessary facts about it, but when I talk about what I was left with the film, I'm just gonna go back to Dottie. I think with Kit, it was her journey, and definitely finding that sort of again, just that energy, man, that inner confidence in yourself to go out and be the best version of yourself, even when you're not being assured of it, even when the world isn't assuring you. Like just staying at it. Like I love that so much, you know, just because she finally got her flowers, right? You know, and we have an insatiable appetite as filmmakers. I don't know when we'll get to that point, right? As far as when we feel like we have gotten to that point, right? Whatever that looks like, right? Like you were saying, but until then, my friend, and I just appreciate seeing that in Kit. I could really feel her for that. But with Dottie, you know, I was asking myself, you know, like what was her conflict, you know, and how and if it was this sort of identity in who she was within the major leagues, and you know, she didn't want to go in the first place. It was Kit that got her in, and then even when she was about to go to the World Series, that she ended up leaving. She was only there for the last game. Mm-hmm. I think that she made a decision, and she kind of stuck with that decision all her life, that being a wife was more important than being a baseball player. And at the very beginning, I think that was sort of insecurity, because you could say she had to live with knowing that Kit won the championship, and Kit went on to get the family and kids later too, right?
Yeah,
you know?
She got it all too.
Right, she got it all too. So I'm thinking, like, man, her in this age and her coming back to this Hall of Fame, she had to have all these things going through her head, you know, of insecurity that Kit probably didn't have as much of. And I'm just, you know, what is this conflict? I was trying to like put it in words what it is, and I think that I think the movie was it. I don't know if I can put it in words, but I can say that what really resonated with me was just kind of finding, just like what she found at the end, when I talk about that objective fan asking who she was and just seeing that glow with everybody surrounding her and giving her that praise. And I think of it as, you know, when we were talking about, you know, just full disclosure, you know, we always have to act like we're always doing great. But we're like, when we were talking about harsh times in the middle of production where you're like, I want to quit. You're like, like, this is how I'm feeling right now, right? Yeah. But we know that we have to go through those. Just like we got to go through those no's, we got to go through those moments where it looks hopeless. You know, that the situation looks hopeless, and people don't know about those times of weakness. They don't see that, but it's not those moments that resonate the most with me. It is the people, man. It is everybody who I'm on set with that remind me all the time. You know, I say it as humbly as possible, but it's like just as much as the film, just as much as the final film. It is the audience members that say, oh, this meant this, and that. I saw this, and that. Or, you know, man, thank you. Like, I was in a bad mood, but now, like, I'm feeling great now, you know? Or when you're on set and you know all of these independent filmmakers that don't know when they're going to have a job where they feel appreciated and when they're doing what they love and they believe in what's happening and they believe in who's doing it and who's directing. Like, they only have those moments are far and few between for them too. Mm-hmm. So for me to be able to give that to them, like, that's what makes you special. That's what makes me special. That's what made Dottie special. It wasn't whether or not it was, you know, Thor's mother in Endgame tells him it's not about the man who you're supposed to be. It's about the man that you are, you know, and it's not about the fact that you were supposed to play in the entire series and win the series. It wasn't about that you were supposed to choose the league over your husband and play for years. It's not about all of that. It's about while you were there, you touched people. You know, and you affected their lives, and that's what this is. You know, in a way, that's what this whole thing is all about, right? It's just about how that light that you shine when you're there, and how you are emitting, and how you make people feel around you, and that's why I loved her arc so much. Yes, man, you know, because that's what it's all about, man. Yeah. I'm the same way, man. I'm teary-eyed about it too, because honestly, man, you know, we have to remind ourselves of that, because we don't get told those things, man. We don't. Right. We don't. You know, we get caught in those corners of insecurity where we're just not quite sure what that is. Why am I doing this, right? But it's those people, man. It's the people that we touched. It's the people that it's when you're up there talking about what, you know, about fixing it in pre-production and what that means, and fixing it in prep. It's those moments talking to us. That's what it's all about, man. So yeah, man.
Oh my gosh, so good.
It's beautiful.
Oh, and something that you touched on too, another filmmaker that I was talking to, he was like, you know, how do you feel once your product, like your film, is out and you're hearing an audience reaction? Mm-hmm. And it could be negative, it could be positive, and I'm like, look, that's their reaction. I'm like, I don't think about that too much when, like, I'm just happy and astounded and grateful that, oh, I'm okay, thank you. Got it to the finish line. Mm-hmm. And if it's negative, then that's just, you know, their scope, their lens, you know, and that's fine. And then, you know, on the flip side, if it's positive, it's like, oftentimes I didn't even intend that, so I can't even claim that. Right.
Yeah, man. It's like, honestly, when you just feel like a vessel, right? And yeah. I rapped for years, and I should say that I will still rap. I'm busy making movies, but I'll do it until I'm 100 when I have the time, Lord willing. But, you know, those moments, because, you know, you fall so into the process of it all, and those moments is always very surprising when somebody comes up and said, and then it's like, I don't even know if I'm getting it right half of the time. Like, I don't even know if what message and how the message, if it's getting received. And I feel like, you know, the negative ones, I don't even know about the negative ones. I know about what's scarier is the silence, right? You know, like, I know about or people are like talking over it or getting up and walking away. I find those to be very educational moments. And again, and you just get, you know, having your pride exit the situation and just kind of being like, Oh man, I need to become a better storyteller. This is a part of the process. So for that story, like if I really believe that my buddy's story needs to be put out there and I'm the person to do it, or this whatever feature I'm working on, there's a feature that I want to do out in Liberia, and to help with their whole situation there, and I'm like, if you are to be that, then heavy is the crown, right? You need to do what it takes. You need to. You're nobody's oven ready. Nobody's just like prepped and just ready to be great. Most of the time, our favorite filmmakers, they buried their crappy films before they came up and we got to see them, right? So now their first film is the one that was all perfect, right? We make so much crap in the meantime, right? I love. Oh man, where did I just hear this from? It was probably a podcast or something that was saying how when you clean up, when you like if it's like spring cleaning, and you clean up the house, and if somebody walked in the middle of that cleanup, it would be even messier than when you started, right?
Right.
It would be there'd be stuff all over the place, But if you waited just wait till I'm done. Wait till I'm done, right? Wait, it's like then you walk in and it's perfect, it's pristine, right?
Yeah.
And I just when you said it makes me think of that. Whereas it's like we're in the oven, right? We're in the oven and we're cooking, and I've learned to at least appreciate just people watching it in general, and I enjoy watching people watch my film. I'm watching. That's what I'm doing when at my screenings. I'm watching people watch the film, and that's just cherry on the top. If somebody comes and tells me that they said that they appreciate it like that, I mean, like that's awesome, man. Like shout out to the filmmakers that that we love and respect, that that get that a lot when they but they probably don't realize they probably are dealing with things on their own level, right? They're getting critics and reviews and from whole other level, and it's hard for them to probably sift through all of that, right?
Yeah.
So on any level, we just have to remember, like on any level, there's always that critique, but because it's art, and that's just it's this subjective thing, and that it's just part of it. We chose it. We chose that life, right? Yeah, man. Is there anything that you wanted to put a period on with what this film left you with?
Ooh. And
I'm sorry, your close up fizzled out on me. I ran out of space over
here.
All
good, yeah. A League of Their Own. I just really appreciated seeing the journey of sisterhood, because like I said, even though my sisters we don't have that same type of relationship, I feel like all sisters can like resonate with something.
Definitely.
And I feel like that's not often represented in film, and also just like the complications of being a female, of like these are still sisters that love each other at the end of the day,
right?
Even though they are button, like being dramatic or doing the female quote unquote female things, and I just really appreciate that this is us in all our form.
Right, yeah, man. Yeah, man. All the good and the bad, all of it. It's like that. And that's what's so awesome. And I love that you said that, because that, I mean, there's so many ways I can say this. I really enjoy the spirit of a woman. It is distinct. It is a very distinct thing. Don't try to be us, please. It is not what it's all cracked up to be. Like I love so much what it is, and it's not always perfect. It's not always great, right? Like sometimes it's a touch of the stereotypes, and sometimes it is a very individual thing that no other woman, it's just this woman, and sometimes it's a group, sometimes it's a demographic, but what that is a woman, like should be taken as of highest value as possible, and don't like strip away from it. Don't try to add on to it. Like, to me, don't try to merge it with us. Like, please, we need you for the love of God to be a woman in all of its amazement, but so that I can have somewhere to sneak off to after my football practice and cry like a baby and watch.
Oh, that's going back to like the kind of what innately is feminine.
Right.
It is nurturing. That is a very feminine quality. Not that men don't have that, but especially in society today and from before, like, it's not as accepted.
Right.
Which is really sad. And I love and see the progress of that shifting and changing, but also of like, you know, what emotions are okay. Like, men can be angry and it's fine, but if a woman's angry, oh, she's being emotional and dramatic and all these things. And what's interesting is like, and something that I've learned from men is how to let things go. Like, wow, certain things really don't bother men. Right. So it's like, you know, we have something to learn from each other, and like you said, we need each other, and that's
the fun part. That's the yin and the yang, right? You know, that's supposed to be the fun part about it, right? So
absolutely
beautiful stuff. Well, thank you so much, Michelle. Do you want to let us know about any projects, anything you got coming up? Give any social media handles that you want to give, anything like that?
Sure, yeah. So you can find me on my website at michelle-caruso.com, and my last name is spelled Caruso, and that'll connect to all my social medias. Anywhere I'm on the interwebs, you can find it through my website. And also my website, so I've been working in the film industry on large studio produced productions, which is a lot of people's goals. That's just not my long-term goal. That's just what I happen to accomplish in the time that I've had. I'm teaching how I got to this point. So I have a PA ebook, and also one on production and accounting, workflows and policies and paperwork.
Nice.
And for now I've taken a pause, but I have a YouTube vlog which goes into more depth on all those subjects, because it is a very mystified industry, and it's very much a chess game and people industry. So it's all about, having kind of your allies and the people that go to bat for you, and that takes time to cultivate.
Right.
So that's the gameplay that I'm trying to teach people.
That's so cool.
Yeah,
man, just to demystify all the stuff, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
so
like,
cool.
I want to work in film. How can I do it? It's like, and like we were saying, it's not so much you do this and this, like, it's not exactly a step-by-step process.
Right.
But there are steps that you need to be taking to have doors open. Like I said, it is a bit of a numbers game. You have to be knocking on more doors. You have to be meeting more people, because eventually a door will open and an opportunity will arise. But if you haven't put yourself in enough people's pockets and minds, then that's not going to happen for you.
Cool. I love that you said that. It reminds me of... of course, I'm not going to say this quote right either, but it's like success is like when opportunity meets like your work that you're doing.
Is it opportunity? Opportunity happens when luck meets hard work, maybe?
Something like that.
Yeah,
Divided by, subtracted to. That's why we're filmmakers, all right? We don't do math here, guys. We don't do math.
That's not my strength.
No, man. But yeah, it's I think sometimes when you're not, I mean, I learn more and more, as we all do. I remember first being in the industry and you're just wanting to get in, and you're like, what does that look like? What is it? And it's like, man, you can step onto a set and everything is there at your grasp, but if you don't have the language, if you don't have the testimony, then it's almost like it's not there at all. So it's understanding those things and knowing what those things are. And again, it's great that you're allowing yourself to be able to give that knowledge to people to stand on top of, so that when they step to the set, or when they're going to achieve that thing, they have the right mindset, so they have the lenses to be able to take those opportunities. I go on set now, and like I was telling you, I know everybody's going to look at me like I'm crazy taking PA gigs with the MFA, but it's just being on set, that I know what to do now, versus years ago when I went on the set. Like before, I would step on the set and I'm But now I go to the video village. I'm not saying to do this. If you don't know how to do it, I'm not saying to do this now. Yeah. But I know how to talk to the producers and the people above the line. I know because I'm thinking like them. I'm working on my own films, like literally as they're working on theirs, and I'm like, oh man, so you chose this, you guys chose the sky panel. I wonder why. I'm like honestly going up and asking, they're rigging the set for the next. I go across the street, I see they're rigging a set for next week. Oh, what are you guys up to? And it creates these conversations, and you like to do this? Oh, I'll build it for you. And it just creates all these opportunities and situations that otherwise, wouldn't happen. So thanks so much for, just bestowing your knowledge onto us.
Yeah, I'm trying, it's all about passing it on and, looking back and reviewing on what I did. It's like I'm doing the same things, but in a bigger way now. Right, so it's been helpful for me to have that review. And also, because studio world and independent worlds are similar but very different in a lot of ways.
Definitely.
And something that, as much as I'm ready for my time to be over as below the line crew, right. Something that I'll come with that a lot of these quote unquote new directors, young directors don't have is like I have the industry experience. I know the workflow. I know the terms. I know the language. And that's something that I'm just continuing to hold on to that will serve me. And I know it will. It's just, yes. I'm working on patience.
Yeah, man. All of us, man. All of us, that the patience. And again, the what to fill that void with, when we're sitting around and, and we're not directing or there's not a camera in our hand, we're just making sure we're getting all of those insecure thoughts out. Get out of my head. Get out of my head. I'm great.
Absolutely.
Now,
awesome.
I can thank you till I'm blue in the face. Thank you again, Michelle. Yeah. This is another episode of the New Filmosophy. We got a league of their own. And I feel like there was one more thing. Oh, yeah. I want to be able to see some of your films. Are there any of them available anywhere? Are they on your website? Or?
Yeah, so on my website, under a films tab is Dig Your Grave, which was the Western I was telling you about. That one is released. 2 of my films right now are in the film festival circuit, so I just have the trailers out to those. But gotcha. Anyone that wants to see them, I'm happy to send a private link and, with password protected. And then also in 2019, I worked on a web series. Atlanta Locals did a comedy web series called What's Your Problem? It's about 2 therapists, and each episode is like with a different patient.
Cool.
And I did one of the middle episodes and then the finale, so I have links to that on my website. So and again, going back to like some films like Sweep Under the Rug, like those are the ones that are, the good my good babies.
Yeah, like. Cool, good. Yeah, man. Yeah, I feel you. I have things on my website and I'm constantly telling myself, especially if I got an award or something for it, I'm like, leave it up, Trey. All right, after you do a new film, you're like, please don't watch anything else. Just watch what I did last. And then I do another film, and I'm like, don't look at that other film.
Well, something that someone told me with that is like, but that shows your growth.
Right.
Like, okay.
Exactly. Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much, man. We could do this for another 3 hours, probably. Yeah. Thanks so much, guys. You enjoy the rest of your day, night, evening. We'll see you next time. Find all our content on thenewfilmosophy.com.